All right. Hello, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Are you ready for 4 hours of what with this little thing where we give you news and information you can use? I hope you are. If you're out and about, just, sit back and listen because I'm about to drop a lot of numbers on you. But these numbers are something I think you're going to want to find out. Now, normally, I don't pay much attention to what CNN is doing. I really don't. I don't have a lot of confidence. But I looked at their poll today that is just out, and it mirrors a poll that I do trust. So I have sort of some confidence in these numbers. And if you're a Democrat and you're looking at this CNN poll, you're going straight to panic mode. I mean, these numbers for Biden are bad. I mean, really bad. And it sort of reinforces my belief that the Democrats are never going to allow him to be the nominee. Because if you look at these numbers, he's deep in a hole. And it was so bad that the CNN anchor who started the show this morning with these numbers started with one word.
Oof.
Oof. Oof, it's bad.
Oof.
I mean, really bad. Here's how it starts out for them on CNN this morning, talking about the numbers of their brand new poll, which really do not look good for the presumptive Democrat nominee.
Oof. Problematic new polling numbers out this morning for President Biden. The CNN poll finds his approval rating sinking to just 39%. Democrats on notice as the 2024 race for the White House heats up. Among voters' concerns, Biden's age. They're worried about his mental and physical competence, along with how well he understands the concerns of future generations of Americans. Another big issue, the economy. 58% say Biden's policies have made economic conditions worse.
Oh, but that's just the start. Let me just run through some of the numbers here. Views of Biden's performance in office is as you heard there, his job approval rating stands at 39%. Listen to this number. 58% say his policies have made economic conditions in the U.S. worse. That is up 8 points since last fall. 70% of Americans who were polled by CNN say things in the country are going badly. Let me repeat that number. 70% of Americans polled by CNN say that things in the country are going badly. A persistent negativity that is held for much of Biden's time in office. Perceptions of Biden personally are also broadly negative, with 58% saying they have an unfavorable impression of him. Fewer than half Americans, this is a really shocking number. Fewer than half of Americans say that Biden cares about people like them. Only 33% describing him as someone they're proud to have as their president. 33% of the people who were surveyed said they are proud that Joe Biden is their president. A smaller share of the public than ever now say Biden inspires confidence. Only 28% say that Biden is a man who inspires confidence. And that's down 7 points since March. Or that he has the stamina and sharpness to serve effectively. Only 26% believe that. And that's down 6 points from March. With those declines largely driven by, are you ready for this? Democrats and independents. Roughly 3/4 of Americans say they are seriously concerned that Biden's age might negatively affect his current level of physical and mental competence, 73%. Now, this is where I start to look at other polls. That's very much where the Wall Street Journal poll was the other day. And his ability to serve out another full term if reelected, only 76% believe that will happen. 68% seriously concerned about his ability to understand the next generation's concerns. Wow, think about that. I mean, that's young voters. That stands at 72% among younger than 65, but 57% of those 65 or older feel the same way. Most Democrat voters, listen to this number, a broad 67%, two-thirds majority of Democrats and Democrat-leaning voters now say it's very or extremely likely that Biden will again be the party's presidential nominee. But 67% also say the party should nominate someone other than Biden. Oh, my gosh. That's up, by the way, from 54%. In March, 54% of Democrats said that the Democrats should nominate somebody other than Biden. That has gone up to 67%. Wow. That largely is a show of discontent with Biden rather than support of any particular rival. We'll go through some of these other numbers. I'm telling you, if you are looking at these numbers and you're a Democrat, you're in complete panic. Now, they do some matchups, and we'll get into that in just a bit. There's some other 2024 news I want to go into. But oh, yeah, here's this. CNN poll about the scandal, the Hunter Biden scandal. Here is how they report that at CNN. Take a listen to this.
We're talking about, Dana, here, the time when he was vice president, right? Whether Joe Biden was involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings at the time he served as vice president. Overall, if you look here, 61% of Americans think Joe Biden was involved. You can see partisanship drives this, right? Obviously, nearly all Republicans, 90%, believe that. This has been a major storyline and talking point on Fox News and elsewhere. 64% of independents believe that Biden was involved in Hunter's business dealings. 28% of Democrats. And I want to show you, of that 61% overall there that believe he had dealings, 42%, Dana, think that Joe Biden acted illegally when he was vice president in those business dealings. 38% say not involved. 18% said he acted unethically but not illegally. But that is a significant number as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you add the number of people who thought he acted illegally or unethically, as vice president, that number comes to 60%. 42% say he acted illegally. 18% said he acted unethically when he was vice president under Obama. But you add those, it's a very negative number if you add them together. 60% of Americans either believe that he acted illegally or unethically. I mean, these numbers. Well, what about as president? Because that was back, they asked the question two ways. Let's talk back at the time when he was vice president. And those are the numbers we just gave you. Here are the numbers as president.
And when you look here about President Biden now serving as president, his actions in the Hunter Biden probe, have they been appropriate or not? 55% of Americans, a majority, believe Biden's actions related to the Hunter Biden probe inappropriate. 24% of Democrats, again, a majority of independents, 52%, and nearly all Republicans at 90% believe that. And this is to show what happens when you don't push back at all, which is really basically what the White House has been doing. There's not been a Hunter Biden defense kind of mounted in a public relations way, and it's starting to seep through beyond just the right-wing echo chamber we're seeing.
All right, so, let's go through some of this. Let's talk about the time when he was vice president, because that's really where most of the Republican House investigation is focused on right now. 90% of Republicans believe he acted illegally. 64% of independents. Now, you know my long-standing belief that Republicans, can't win if only Republicans feel a certain way or if they support a certain candidate. You have to have people in the middle. And those people in the middle are sometimes they go left, sometimes they go right. That's why they're called the mushy middle. Well, 64% of independents believe that he acted illegally. Now, that doesn't sound, would you go to the poll and pull the lever or fill in the little dot for somebody that you believe acted illegally as vice president? I don't think so. Really rough numbers. Really rough numbers. I don't see this as there's not one glimmer of good news in any of this for Democrats. Not one glimmer. Joe Biden's black Hispanic polling numbers are the worst since Walter Mondale in 1984, writes the New York Times. The New York Times, the organ of the left, the old gray lady. President Joe Biden's 2024 polling numbers among black and Hispanic Democrats are perhaps the worst since Walter Mondale in 1984. While Biden's support among white Democrats remains steadily below 50%, his support among black and Hispanic Democrats has plummeted since he assumed office. Biden's weaknesses among non-white voters is broad, spanning virtually every demographic category and racial group, including a 72-11 lead among black voters and a 47-35 lead among Hispanic registrants. I mean, in 2020, by comparison, Joe Biden won 92% of the black vote and 59% of the Hispanic vote. His numbers among a couple of very, very reliable voting blocks has gone down since he became president. This is really something. As long as we're talking about all of this stuff, we have to mention Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris did an interview with CBS News. And, what is their answer going to be Kamala Harris? I don't know. They seem to be trotting her out. And they seem to be, and she's not giggling as much, and she's not guffawing as much. And she seems to be, a bit better prepped than she was in the past. But, I mean, if you look at Kamala's numbers, and it's hard to believe what we've just told you about Biden's numbers, they're worse. They're far worse. She is perhaps the most unpopular politician out there. But she wants you to know, by gosh, should something happen, she's ready.
So you're 58 now. If you win a second term, as you and the president are running to do, he would be 86 at the end of it. The Wall Street Journal had a poll showing 2/3 of Democrats say Joe Biden is too old to run again. Are you prepared to be commander-in-chief?
Yes, I am, if necessary. But Joe Biden is going to be fine. And let me tell you something. I work with Joe Biden every day.
Yeah.
The work that under Joe Biden's leadership our administration has accomplished is transformative. I think the American people, most of all, want a leader who actually gets things done.
All right, so she's ready, but she's telling you Joe's okay. Well, anybody who watches Joe knows that Joe is not okay. He is simply not okay. I won't spend a lot of time here on that. But let's just sort of wrap this up. I believe that Democrats are going to look at these polls. I mean, when you see the New York Times and CNN out there drumming up these poll numbers, which look just disastrous for Democrats, disastrous for Joe Biden, then you're in a world of hurt, and I don't think that they're going to allow him to go for it, and it's certainly not going to be Kamala. So I think they're going to have to make a move, and how that's all going to reveal itself is still not clear to me. But it was said by somebody the other day, Joe Biden, he stumbles, he bumbles, he falls. It's very clear. The other day during a ceremony for the Medal of Honor recipient, he walked out in the middle of the event before it was over, like he doesn't have a clue of what's going on around him. And people see that. If he were to have a moment like Mitch McConnell had, where he just looked and then sort of had a brain freeze, if something like that were to happen, it would be over. And there's going to have to be an event that causes Democrats to say, okay, I'm sorry, Joe, but this is not going to work. And I think they're just waiting for that to happen. It will happen. But if you're a Democrat and you look at these numbers, nothing in this is good. Not one thing is any good about this. Now I will tell you that you're going to be surprised by what I'm going to do next. You do not want to leave. You got to stick around for this. CNN did matchups. Biden versus Trump, Biden versus DeSantis, Biden versus Ramaswamy, on down the line. You're going to be surprised at which of the Republican candidates does best in the CNN poll. Right now, 21 minutes past the hour.
Former Donald Trump aide Peter Navarro found guilty of defying a subpoena involving the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The First Lady's latest COVID test results are in, and a massive airbag recall could be coming. We'll fill you in at 3:30. I'm Mac Maury here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 26 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. And I've been talking about the CNN poll. And normally I ignore CNN polls, but I mean, I really have done my due diligence here. And the CNN poll does seem to sort of match up with other polls out there. Take any of these polls as a snapshot. I'm not saying this is the way it's going to turn out. It's simply a snapshot of where Americans are right now. And, the CNN anchor who was leading this segment this morning, she understood how disastrous this was for the left. She started out by saying, oof, 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 it looks bad. And it does. So I want to now turn to another part of the poll where they matched up Joe Biden. Of course, they're doing it from their perspective against a host of different Republicans who are running. Now, of course, the way it looks right now, if you were to be go with conventional wisdom, and turns out to be Trump versus Biden, Trump would win by 1 point, according to the CNN poll. It is Trump 47, Biden 46, but that's really within the margin of error. And, although I hear the former president say, I'm beating him in every poll, he's not. I mean, it's not. I have to be honest with you, he's not. Most of them, there are some where he wins, and there are some where Biden wins, but almost all of them within the margin of error. So, let's just call this a tie, but at least in the CNN poll, he wins by 1 point. I wouldn't want to go into the general election with that number. However, let me look at some other numbers. How would he shape up? How would it be if Biden faced DeSantis? It would be a tie. So, essentially the same. Biden versus Ramaswamy, Biden would win by 1 point. Again, these are all virtually ties. Pence, this is amazing. If Mike Pence were somehow, it's not going to happen, but if he were somehow to get the Republican nomination, this poll says that Pence would win by 2. Tim Scott would win by 2. Chris Christie would win by 2. But here's the surprise shocker. Nikki Haley would win by 6, according to this poll. And now, is that an aberration? I don't know. But, again, this is a CNN poll. It would be Biden 43, Haley 49. Haley would win by 6. I don't think anybody saw that coming. So, I just lay that out there. It's one poll, and it's early, and it doesn't mean a whole lot, except that you take away some broad themes here. If it were to be Trump and Biden, it's going to be tight as a tick, is the way it looks right now. And I think when you look at all of these numbers about Biden and how poorly he does, and every category, the economy, etc., age, his whether or not he's a crook or not, it looks really, 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 really bad. But then when you get to the question, well, would you vote for Biden or Trump? It's virtually tied. So I don't know what to draw from that. You draw from it what you will. But I think that's pretty interesting stuff. And Nikki Haley is going to run with this, you can be sure. As, the CNN poll has her up by 6 and way ahead of anybody else if there were to be a face-to-face matchup between Biden and Haley. All right, there you have it. We've gone through it. 30 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 83 degrees right now on Music Row. Traffic and the weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Some breaking news from ABC. A jury has found former Trump advisor Peter Navarro guilty of defying a subpoena issued in February 2022 by the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol attack. Navarro, who under Donald Trump was director of the White House Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy, is being tried on contempt of Congress charges after he was indicted by a grand jury in June. Prosecutors argued during closing arguments that Navarro's failure to submit documents and testify before the committee was intentional, while the defense argued that Navarro was, quote, communicative with the committee despite not testifying or submitting documents. And a negative COVID test for the First Lady. Karen Travers gives us the latest.
The First Lady's office said Thursday Jill Biden tested negative for COVID. Dr. Biden tested positive for COVID on Monday and has been isolating at the Bidens' home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. The White House said she had been experiencing mild symptoms but doing well. President Biden tested negative on Thursday, his fourth consecutive day with a negative test.
And President Biden currently en route to the G20 World Leaders Summit in India. And another massive airbag recall may be coming. Kana Whitworth.
We're talking about 52 million airbag inflators that could currently be posing a risk of serious injury, even death. And that's according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. This is prompting a new push by them for a massive recall affecting up to 25 million vehicles on American roads.
This part made by a company called ARC. It's based in Tennessee and used by automakers that include BMW, Ford, GM, Hyundai, Kia, Maserati, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Tesla, Toyota, and Volkswagen. That is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair on the air, bringing you news and information and this little thing we call the drive. COVID, the left is doing everything that it possibly can to bring back COVID restrictions. And the right is saying, we're not going down that path again. I bring to your attention a story. This is this caught my eye probably because this is where my daughter went to school, not this particular school, but this particular school system, Montgomery County, Maryland. They're reintroducing a mask mandate, and they're requiring N95 mask for third graders. It begins. I mean, there was one in L.A., and, if you're in a blue state, get ready, because the mask mandates are coming back because of the new variant of COVID, which, according to the information that I dug up yesterday, it's mild. It's not particularly deadly. It is COVID, but it is not, the first round of COVID. It has a much milder impact on most of its victims. Today in the United States Senate, J.D. Vance of Ohio, I like him, Republican senator from Ohio, took to the floor and tried to put an end to all this mask nonsense. And here, I want you to hear, it's about 1:30 of how that all played out. The first voice you hear is J.D. Vance. The second voice you will hear is that of Edward Markey of Massachusetts.
This policy does not set anything for an unlimited period of time. It says that for the next 15 months, the government can't force you to wear a mask on planes, on public transit, or in public schools. Taxpayer dollars cannot be used to force and enforce a mandate against our people. It's not setting a policy that we cannot deal with pandemics in the future. If something else comes, God forbid, then let this body deal with it at this time. But now let's learn the message, let's heed the message from the American people, and let's learn the lessons of the past couple of years. Mandatory masking was a failure. It had costs for very little benefits, and we shouldn't repeat it. Mr. President, as of in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S2738, the Freedom to Breathe Act, which is at desk. Further, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Senator from Massachusetts.
This bill would undermine the ability of states, of cities, and towns across this country to make decisions about what's best for their communities. It would silence and hamstring public health experts who have guided our nation out of the darkest days of a pandemic.
Well, I'm not really sure that the bill as presented by J.D. Vance would do that. It simply said, from a national standpoint, you're not going to tell us to put on a mask to get on a plane, which it should be, I think, the Republican conservative position on all of this. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Nobody's going to stop you from wearing a mask. But you look at everything, you should look at everything as risk-benefit. Or what's the upside, what's the downside? The upside, to having masks, hard to determine. I don't think that they're effective. I mean, honestly, did we really believe that little thin piece of paper was going to protect us from COVID-19? So I don't know that they're effective, but the downside was a lot of things like remote learning, etc. I mean, we should not fall for this again. And J.D. Vance is right in trying to do something that would stop the federal government from spending money to impose mask mandates. Wear a mask if you want to wear a mask. Okay, and if you're going to be around an elderly person with a suppressed immune system, maybe out of courtesy, you wear a mask in a rare situation like that. But I mean, I don't need a mask to get on a plane. I don't need a mask to go to the grocery store. I don't need a mask to do my business and in life, and I intend not to wear one. I mean, a lot of times in the last round or in the first round when we went through it all and everybody was required to go wear masks, I didn't want to wear the mask. A lot of times if I could get away with it, I wouldn't wear the mask. But what I generally ended up doing is out of courtesy, because it wasn't a big thing to me, I would wear the mask when it was required of me, and I'm not doing it this time. I'm not doing it this time. We've got to make some decisions, I think, here in the state of Tennessee. I don't think that anybody is going to be out there in Tennessee requesting that we do. Well, I can't say that. I think that our governor and our state legislature are going to be against anything that has to do with mask mandates. I think they're going to be, but I can't predict what the mayor is going to do in Nashville. I mean, Cooper held on to the bitter end. And then I honestly think the only reason he changed his mind is he started to see polling numbers where it was really going against him about, wearing the mask and keeping restaurants. And I mean, he went from having everything closed down to, well, today it's better, it's fine, everything's good. You know, what happened there, Mayor Cooper? Because the numbers had not changed significantly. Just one day, we need the mask and we need the separation and we need to keep bars and restaurants closed. And then, boom, out of nowhere, the next day, it was like, well, we're over it. Nothing really changed in that short period of time, except that he realized how unpopular it was. But I can't tell you that Metro Nashville Public Schools are not going to impose a mask mandate. They might. But I hope that we are in a position in this state to sort of reject that nonsense in a big way. And we're going to be asked again, I think, from the federal government and from the White House to take the new vaccine. We're going to, you need to get your booster shot. I'm not doing that either. Made that mistake once, not going to go down that path again. Now, you have to understand that in the early going, we didn't really know what we were dealing with. And in the early going, we all had to make decisions. Some of them that I stand by and some of them I disagree with the passage of time. But I'm telling you, they're going to be pressuring us to do this. And we in Tennessee need to, just sort of, Governor, if you're listening, let's be a little preemptive here, okay? Let's do what J.D. Vance is doing. Trying to get out there and say, we're not going to allow money in the state of Tennessee to be used to impose a mask mandate. We're not going to be shutting down businesses. We're not going to be shutting down schools. We're not going to be doing remote learning because that turned out to be an abject failure, a complete disaster. It's coming. They're gonna play this game again, and it's going to be very interesting to see how everybody responds. I've reconsidered a lot of my positions, and I think I'll just take my chances. I read today where Megyn Kelly, who has a talk show, former Fox News anchor, but she's now over on Sirius XM. She's saying that she did take the vaccine and now has been found to have an autoimmune problem that she had never had before. And she went to, one of the real experts on this kind of thing. And according to the story that I read today, they told her, yeah, we're seeing a lot of this stuff that we didn't see before. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not even going to try to play one on the radio. You make the decision that's right for you. You do what you need to do. But for the rest of us, leave us alone. The mask mandates are just, it's insane. I really like what J.D. Vance has done here. I would like to see us do something proactively like that on the state of Tennessee level. And since, a great number of people who serve in the state legislature, a great number of people who serve in the governor's cabinet, pass on the message that perhaps we need to do something proactively in advance before this nonsense gets any further along. Remember, everything that we've read so far about the new variant of COVID suggests it's not lethal in most cases, unless you are really compromised from an immune standpoint. It's not deadly. It's mostly a cough and a sniffle. That's what it is. So, be read up, and let's see if we can't get our state legislature and our governor's office on board with the idea of doing what J.D. Vance did. Just saying, for the record, we're not going to do things the same way. It is now 49 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you it'll be ready at 4, and then you get there and it's not ready. People are really tired of that kind of stuff. And if you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, come to Eurofix. Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable, and Eurofix has your vehicle ready when it's really ready, so you don't have to stand around and wait. Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. And that because dealer repair shops are designed to pay for virtually all of a dealership's overhead. That's a lot of money. Why would you pay that? At Eurofix, reliable also means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead, as loaner cars are very popular. If you're tired of unreliable repair shops, come to where it is reliable. Eurofix, family-owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. When we get to retirement, what do we want to do? We want to go and kick back, right? But we also want to take an income from our investment portfolios. And there are a lot of common myths that I hear about how do you take an income from an investment portfolio. One is that people will get into, this was really big a few years ago, really big, real estate investment trust. Now, real estate gets rented and it kicks off an income, and then you have some kind of dividend that's paid, and because the REIT has to pay out most of the dividend, it's a great way to take income in retirement. But what happens, like what happened recently, when all of a sudden the properties go unrented? What happens to your income? Bye-bye, it's gone. Another thing that I see is this: people buy stocks or stock mutual funds that are dividend paying, and what we'll do is we'll live off the dividends. Well, what is the dividend? It's part of the earnings of the company. So you got the earnings of the company, right? And then what happens is the company may pay out some of the dividend, and they call that a dividend when they pay it out, or they may retain some of it, and it's called retained earnings. Well, the problem is this: what if the company's earnings go down? Just like the real estate investment trust up here, what if the earnings go down? What happens to your dividend? It goes away. All of a sudden, it's bye-bye to your retirement income. So what do we want to do? We want to diversify way better. If you look at the academic research on investing and how to take income from a portfolio, quite often what it is saying, okay, I'm going to have some money in various asset classes. Large companies, small companies, value companies, growth companies, international companies, short-term bonds and intermediate bonds, and so on and so forth. And what I do is I look at these different areas of the market, and they have a historic return. And what happens if the portfolio does this area of the market does better than this one? Well, in that particular year, I'm going to take income from this part of the portfolio. Then the next year, maybe this area does better than everything else. I'll take income from there. So what I'm doing is diversifying, which is an age-old concept. I mean, good grief, Nobel Prize winning concept of investing. And I actually apply it to taking income from a portfolio. So why is it that we often see this kind of stuff? It's because of the fees and the commissions and all of the incentives to sell you things that maybe aren't in your best interest. And a lot of advisors, you look at it, they aren't held to a fiduciary standard. In other words, they don't have to keep your best interest first. Paul Winkler Inc., we hold ourselves voluntarily to that standard, and we actually disclose it in our disclosure brochures. So if you want to know more about what we do and learn more and educate along the way, go to paulwinkler.com. Set up a free 15-minute phone call so that you can learn more, become an educated investor. First step is easy. paulwinkler.com, free 15-minute phone call, and get started ASAP, because you can't afford to wait. You've got to make sure you get this right. You don't get a second shot.
A former Donald Trump aide, Peter Navarro, convicted of contempt of Congress. A Kentucky officer shot this morning. A manhunt still ongoing in Pennsylvania, and Russian crime affecting the volunteer state. Those stories and more coming up at 4 right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, here's some news for you. Joe Manchin is upset with the Biden administration, and I'm upset too. You should be upset as well. Well, we probably are always upset with the Biden administration, aren't we? Apparently, yesterday, with little notice, a big surprise, the Department of Interior said it would prohibit oil and gas drilling on more than 10.6 million acres in Alaska's National Petroleum Reserve, ensuring, they said, maximum protection for more than 40% of the reserve, which is located on Alaska's North Slope and is the largest undisturbed public land in the United States. Now, Manchin says, I can't explain to the American people why we would willingly become more dependent on foreign oil. Well, he's right about that. Eliminate good-paying American jobs and drive up the cost of our electric bills and gas prices around the country. Another example of this administration caving to the radical left with no regard for clear direction from Congress or American energy security. So there you have that. And it is having an impact on the markets. The Dow Jones Industrial was up 57 points, S&P down 14, NASDAQ was down 123. The way I read this is they're worried about interest rate pressures, and part of that is the high cost of gasoline that will come as gasoline prices are going up. They're now around $90 a barrel. Not quite there, but almost. And the $90 price means that you're going to be paying more at the pump, and you're going to be paying more for everything else you get, which means that there's going to be another round of inflation driven largely by energy prices. So, get ready. I don't know how that's going to work out. By the way, all of this brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. To learn more about all the things they do, just go to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 57 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 82 degrees in Nashville. The rest of this week into the weekend looking full of sunny and clear skies for Middle Tennessee. Complete and weather and traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. Former Donald Trump aide Peter Navarro has been convicted of contempt of Congress for failing to testify before the House January 6 committee. Stephen Portnoy with the report.
It took a federal jury here in D.C. 4 hours to convict the former Trump trade advisor on 2 counts of defying a congressional subpoena. This now marks the second time a former Trump aide has been convicted for failing to cooperate with the House January 6th committee. Steve Bannon, who was sentenced to 4 months in prison, is appealing his conviction.
And Navarro, who under Donald Trump was director of the White House Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy, is being tried on contempt of Congress charges after he was indicted by a grand jury in June. And in Kentucky, a Louisville police officer in critical condition after being shot this morning. The shots came from a house while a traffic stop was being conducted. One officer was shot in the torso. Another officer that was on the scene returned fire. There are 3 people that have been detained. No arrests have been made yet. And we've got some audio from the shooting that was obtained from Broadcastify.
40th in Kentucky. I'm in Kentucky. I lost you now.
Body cam footage is supposed to be released from this incident in 10 days. In Pennsylvania, an all-hands-on-deck manhunt is underway, searching for escaped murderer Danilo Cavalcante, shown on released videos scaling a wall to reach the roof of the Chester County Prison on August 31st. Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens of the Pennsylvania State Police today saying authorities believe the 34-year-old convicted killer is in an 8 to 10 square mile area.
We're using people on foot. We have horses out there as well that are assisting with the search.
And some Russian crime news, too, says that multiple Russian nationals have been indicted after allegedly targeting Tennessee hospital systems and law enforcement agencies. Middle Tennessee is one of the 3 areas breached, Southern California and Northern Ohio, the other 2. The indictment states that Conti ransomware was used to extort funds from Tennesseans and encrypt police computers. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 6 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive. We'll be here till about 7 o'clock. So, you know, if you got nothing going on, hang around, man. We'd love for you to be a part of what we're doing here. We know that many of you, are coming and going, but we'll try to give you the best stuff while you're listening, okay? The border. Oh, goodness, where to start with the border? Well, first of all, there's this. The House Homeland Security Committee, which is led by Chairman Mark Green, a Republican of Tennessee, has sent out a report that says that Secretary of Department of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas has emboldened the cartels, criminals, and America's enemies. 62-page long report. It details that as a result of Mayorkas and President Joe Biden's border policy, the cartels have strengthened control of portions of the southwest border and are more emboldened than before. And they're also, by the way, flush with cash, right? I mean, people come across the border. Mostly, a lot of them want to have contact with Border Patrol. But they have to pay the cartels to be led to the point where they can cross the river, and they pay the cartels to, find them, through the desert and to the places they need to go. Every person that comes across is probably, most often are going to be paying money to the cartels. Every one of the is cash in the hands of the cartels. Not only that, the cartels are using the crisis on the border as an opportunity to smuggle bad people in. There are 1.6 million gotaways that they help get across the river that we know nothing about. And these are the people who don't try to seek out the Border Patrol. These are the people that run from the Border Patrol. So he's right about that. It is the committee's conclusion that Mayorkas and Biden's policies have emboldened and enriched the cartels, ceded control of America's sovereign southwest border to these organizations, and jeopardized the safety and security of individuals and communities across the country in the process. I mean, that's devastating. And it's true. And he's got it right. I've got to call in. We'll see if we can get him on the show to talk more about this. But I mean to tell you, anybody who's paying attention knows this is true. Mayorkas needs to be, he needs to be impeached. He needs to be taken out of office. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about with regard to the border crisis is this clip of sound from Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, a sanctuary city. I mean, these sanctuary cities, they just crack me up. Talking about, at one point, there they were out there saying, "Hi, we're a sanctuary city. Please come here. We will take care of you. Please come to the warm bosom of New York City, where everyone is welcome. And, please consider us a place of sanctuary." I mean, that's what New York did. That's what Chicago did. That's what Los Angeles did. I can list a lot of blue cities. Yes, we're open. Please come here. You won't have to worry. We won't turn you over to the police. We just want you to come here because we're a sanctuary city. Okay. That's what they did. Now listen to how they complain. Here is Mayor Eric Adams.
I don't see no support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just in Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico.
Really?
Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We had a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you ask me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do and they're destroying New York City? It's going to come to your neighborhoods. All of us are going to be impacted by this. I said it last year when we had 15,000. I'm telling you now, with 110,000, the city we knew we're about to lose. And we're all in this together, all of us. Staten Island is saying, send them out to Manhattan. Manhattan is saying, send them out to Queens. Queens is saying, send them out to Brooklyn. No, it's not the game we can play. Open the floor up.
All right. Open the floor up for discussion. All right, I'll take that one. Number one, he says 110,000 people, and he largely always, points the finger in the direction of the governor of Texas who put some people on buses and sent them to New York City. If there are 110,000 migrants in New York City now, you need to be aware that only about 12% of them came from Texas at the direction of the governor. It's about 13,000 out of 110,000. That's all that the governor of Texas has been responsible for. I mean, the governor of Texas did it as sort of a point, to make a point. You don't think this is a problem that we're dealing with down here in Texas? All right, we'll show you what the problem is. You deal with some of this. He's well within his rights to do it. And by the way, he didn't force anybody to get on a bus. This was all voluntary, and that nonsense, let's not have it. The mayor is talking here about how this is going to ruin our city. Well, what do you think it's doing to border towns? What do you think it's doing to places across this country where the migrants have started to coalesce and meet and to gather? Everything that you're complaining about is the responsibility of a man you did not mention at all. I never heard the name Biden in there at one time. Joe Biden is responsible for this policy. He and Mayorkas are working hand in hand to make this happen and allow this to happen. I guarantee you, this could be stopped in one day with the snap of a finger. But they don't want that. They want people to come to America. They're going to get them work permits, and then they're going to try to make them citizens. And then, this, that, and the other. As long as the Democrats are controlled, they want more and more and more of these people to come across. But did you hear what the mayor said? We're getting Russians now. It's not just a South America, Central America, Mexico problem. People are taking advantage of the chaos, and they're coming to America and making their way to New York City. And now New York City's having to deal with it. They got to feed them. They got to find a place for them to be. They're renting out, $35 million for a couple of hotels that are going to be solely migrant hotels. And ship them out to Queens. Queens says, no, ship them to Brooklyn. Brooklyn says, we don't want them. Send them back to the Manhattan. Everybody is fighting and squabbling among themselves, saying, we don't want them. We can't handle them. They got to educate the kids that are coming across. And they're showing up in school now, and they're all trying to figure out how many of these kids, are migrants and many of them don't speak English at all. I understand it's a disaster, but you know who's responsible for this disaster? The President of the United States, Mayor Adams, completely responsible for this. Why aren't you directing the fire in a place where it would do some good? Why not direct your criticism into your Democrat president and your Democrat Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas? That's where the problem lies. I think that this whole thing, by the way, is going to backfire on Democrats in a huge way. If people in New York City are truly upset with what's going on with regard to the border policy, there's only one person who they could point to that would be responsible for that, and that would be Joe Biden and the Biden administration. If you're really upset, are you going to vote for more of the same? I think it's going to backfire. I mean, they think that eventually this is going to work out for them because a lot of these migrants are going to come across. They're going to become citizens. They're going to become Democrat voters, reliable Democrat voters. You know what? The Hispanic community, we just saw some numbers. I shared them with you in the last hour, that black and Hispanic voters are walking away from Democrats because of this. The people who are here legally don't like what's going on. I don't want to take glee in a very bad situation. But, I mean, there's a part of me that says, okay, you guys, you asked for this. It's your fault. You said, come on. We're a sanctuary city. We're going to take care of you. You know, you'll be welcome here. Until they actually showed up. And now, of course, they're not welcome here. Look. I'm sorry you're having a hard time. I'm sorry that it's ripping up your budget and it's causing all kinds of problem. I'm sorry you believe this is going to destroy your city. Aim your criticism in the right direction. Aim it in the direction of Joe Robinette Biden Jr., Alejandro Mayorkas, and everybody else in the Democrat administration who is making this problem a serious problem for major cities, major blue cities all over the country. You don't hear them talking about this at the White House, and you don't have people asking questions about it. They should be. How in the world can a Democrat mayor from the nation's largest Democrat city talk about a problem where 110,000 migrants have made their way into their city? Now they're responsible for housing them, feeding them, making sure that the children are educated. And how can you not then turn and say, make this stop, Joe Biden? Joe Biden could make this stop in a New York minute. In a New York minute. All he has to do is tell the Border Patrol, go back to enforcing the law. Go back. We're not going to have people coming across the border, given a slip of paper, and told that way is America. We're going to have a southern border again. Until you start directing, he says, what's the answer? The answer is tell Joe Biden to make it stop. Close the border. It's that simple. 20 minutes now, past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. The Wellness Institute of Nashville has done it again. Write down this number, 615-246-5009, because I want to share something with you that is very important to Dr. Kevin Mitchell. It's a way to show your patriotism through the flying of our grand old flag. The Wellness Institute of Nashville is putting American flags back into our cities and towns with something called the Patriot Way Project. And the Wellness Institute is responsible for already having put up 75 brand new flags in cities in our area. You can donate at patriotwayproject.com or just go by and visit them at the Space Age High-Tech Spinal Facility in Mount Juliet. They want you to know that when you visit their facility for spinal or knee treatments, they'll be giving back to our community. So, if and when you have a bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, tingling, numbness of the arms or legs, weakness, spinal stenosis, fatigue, spinal back or neck pain, knee pain or meniscus thinning, come and see them. They bring in those MRIs from your doc. Take the time to review your findings, and they'll give you a way to feel better. They'll give you a plan of therapy that should solve your problem. So come and see them today. Tell your friends and family and loved ones about the Patriot Way Project at patriotwayproject.com. And if you want the number to the Wellness Institute of Nashville, here it is, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
The Senate Energy Committee discussing artificial intelligence today, a death at a TVA plant, and today's money news. Those stories and more coming up 4:30. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Let me say that, I sometimes we rely upon people who cover the news for the stuff that we drop in on. For example, all the local stations, I think that, generally provide fodder for this program from time to time. And we always try to give people credit. And I don't mean this as a criticism of one institution or another, but I keep seeing stories written like this, and it just is in my craw. Here, this one, and again, no real criticism, because all the stories that I read on this were essentially the same. This one happens to come from Channel 5, but I'm not singling them out because I saw it elsewhere. 2 Metro golf courses will receive major funding for renovations on Thursday. Shelby Parks and Vinnie Links. And then this next line. Mayor John Cooper will give $2 million to the Tennessee Golf Foundation to lead these renovations. Mayor Cooper ain't giving anything out of his pocket. Well, he might, I don't know. Maybe he does give a donation. I don't know about his charitable giving. But the $2 million is taxpayer money. Mayor Cooper does not give money to anybody when it comes from taxpayer funds. He is simply transferring that money and making a decision about how that money should be spent. But you and I are paying for this renovation. Now, maybe you're okay with that. Oh, that's all good and fine. My larger point is this. I can't tell you how many times Congressman so-and-so came in and said, hey, I got you. We're going to give you, a couple $1 million for your new bridge, whatever. No, you are taking money that was sent into the system from taxpayers. It's taxpayers' money, and you're announcing how it is going to be spent. But you didn't bring it. It didn't come out of your pocket, and this $2 million didn't come out of Mayor John Cooper's pocket. Let's talk about where it came from. Let's find out how this money came to be. I mean, always want to know that. He was apparently joined this morning by 2 golf legends. And look, I mean, I'm not knocking the project. It may be a good project. I don't know. But the bottom line is, let's be honest about where the money comes from. It comes from taxpayers, not from the mayor. It's a real bee in my bonnet. I mean, it is a burr under my saddle. It is a bug in a place where there should never be a bug. By the way, I had one of those today.
Ooh.
I went out and did some yard work, and I got bit, man, on my knee. I got itching. Driving me crazy. Then this is from Channel 2, and this drives me crazy. When it comes to speeding, no area is immune to the problem. In Mount Juliet, police told News 2 that neighborhood speeding is the #1 crime that they see. Danica Hill says she's petitioning for speed bumps along her street because she's pointed out that the 15-mile-an-hour sign is often ignored. Yeah, everybody ignores a 15-mile-an-hour sign because a 15-mile-an-hour sign is stupid. It's ridiculous, and it's not necessary.
Wow,
I mean,
15,
and they say, well, we want to save lives. They said, I'm afraid that I think every house on our street has children. I think every house on our street has animals. My biggest fear is I'm going to come home one day and find one of my animals, which are just as important to me as my children, injured. Okay, your animals are as important as your children. I got a problem with that. But I mean, here's the solution, lady. Keep your frickin' children out of the road. Keep your dog in your backyard inside a fenced area. That's the problem. Not the people who are driving, what are they driving, 20, 25 miles an hour? Oh, the horror of it all. Speed bumps. You know what I do when I see a speed bump? I speed up. I hit them. I test out I hate them. I think they're ridiculous.
Your mechanic loves that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm in a big old truck. It's a big 4-wheel drive. I can take it. That it's designed to go off-road. He can hit a speed bump at 35 or 40 miles an hour. I promise you that. Look, you don't need more speed bumps. You don't, and people say, well, 15 mile an hour. Okay, look, why, if you want to make sure that nobody is ever hurt, then let's just go ahead and make the speed limit, 8 miles an hour. I mean, you're not going to get hurt at 8 miles an hour. You might get bruised. You might get bumped. But, I mean, let's just go ahead and make it 5, 6, 7, 8 miles an hour. Nobody will get anywhere, but, your kids will not be injured. I mean, it's always risk versus benefit, and we don't need more speed humps. We need people to keep their kids in their yard and their dogs in the backyard. I'm on a tear today. It's 30 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 83 degrees on Music Row. Got the full weather forecast and the latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. The Senate Energy Committee this morning holding a hearing on artificial intelligence. The committee hearing testimony from the Department of Energy and AI experts. Jay O'Brien tells us why.
The DOE governs the United States nuclear arsenal, and they use supercomputers to maintain that nuclear arsenal. So they have these massive supercomputers that use artificial intelligence, but can also be deployed on other things. And so one of the things that this committee is interested in delving into is the notion of how artificial intelligence plays into those supercomputers to make sure those supercomputers are used for the right things rather than the wrong things.
In the U.S., also trying to make sure they have the edge on AI over China. Right now in West Tennessee, a man died on Saturday, September 1st at a Tennessee Valley Authority plant in Brownsville. Matt McPherson was working maintenance on a plane that was when a faulty gas pipe burst, crushing his arm, severely injuring his head. TVA now investigating that death. And over to the money news, Daria Albinger walks us through Wall Street.
Stocks closed mostly lower on worries that the Fed may have to keep raising interest rates. The Dow closed up 58 points, but the Nasdaq gave up 124 and the S&P fell 14. Big tech was particularly weak. Apple tumbled 3.2%. Nvidia sank 5.5%, its biggest loss so far this week. The Federal Reserve has already hiked its main interest rate to the highest level in more than 2 decades as it tries to slow inflation to the 2% target rate. But that isn't happening as quickly as it would like. And experts say the longer the economy runs hot, the greater the chances of a recession. So that could mean more increases in the months to come. First-time jobless claims fell last week to the lowest level in 7 months, down 13,000 to 216,000. It's the latest sign that the labor market is unaffected for the most part by worries about the economy.
And that is the latest news, traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Have we talked about smart care plans? Because this is a big deal. Think about this, really, honestly. For $69 a month, you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. Because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, you marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same their next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast and Music City year after year after year. Listen, they understand that seasonal allergies are here. Grace Point offers allergy testing and treatment so you can enjoy the great outdoors. Grace Point Healthcare, Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to schedule a visit. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. An amalgam of weird stories. I don't know. I found these stories interesting. You know, late night TV used to be a thing. I mean, back in the days of Carson and you know, even Jay Leno, they were number one. David Letterman, they had big numbers. And it was a place where you went, you know, it was a must thing you must do if you had a new record, you had a new book or whatever. You know, you had to try to get booked on The Tonight Show. But Jimmy Fallon has changed that show dramatically. And by the way, there's the onset of more competition, because you got people now like I'm blanking on the guy's name at Fox News.
Gutfeld.
Greg Gutfeld, right. And his show is doing better on Fox than The Tonight Show does many nights. And that's pretty amazing. He's the number one late night guy, Greg Gutfeld. And nobody would have ever saw that coming. The numbers on the show that, you know, NBC does and the other guys, they're all come down dramatically. I don't know how they even... Honestly, I don't know how they make any money on them, because the audiences have just evaporated. Mainly because I think people now don't have to go to linear TV, and it's not appointment TV. It's not like Carson's monologue, which you had to hear every night before you went to bed. So, you know, there's not that big draw and not a huge star. But this story, it came out in Rolling Stone Thursday. And some other people have picked it up as well. This is from Page 6, New York Post. Jimmy Fallon, apparently, according to this article, and I don't know. I've never met the guy. I don't know anything about it. 2 current and 14 former employees, ranging from production crew members to office staffers to show writers, talked about how ugly it was to work with Jimmy Fallon. He said there were good Jimmy days, and then there were bad Jimmy days. No one told Jimmy no. Everyone walked on eggshells, especially showrunners. You never knew which Jimmy you were going to get, and whether or not he was going to throw a hissy fit about something. Look how many showrunners went so quickly. We know they didn't last long. There are even suggestions at times that Jimmy Fallon showed up and maybe appeared to some to have been drinking. The anonymous current employees and former staffers claimed to Rolling Stone that Tonight Show has been a toxic workplace behind the scenes for years, from Fallon's erratic behavior to the show's revolving door leadership teams. 2 employees told that Fallon seemed drunk at work in 2017. Another pair of workers claimed to have smelled alcohol on the host's breath in an elevator on separate occasions in 2019 and 2020. Ex-staffers described the show as tense and pretty glum atmosphere. The Saturday Night Live alum, 48 years old, is also accused of having unexpected outbursts, some of which were allegedly reported to HR, and according to Rolling Stone again, no action was pursued. A few of the former employees said the toxic work environment impacted their mental health, and that it was routine for staffers to joke about wanting to kill themselves. They also reportedly referred to the guest dressing rooms in the office as crying rooms. The staff would go there to cry. Whoa! I mean, it's sort of like working on the drive, I guess, you know? No.
Except we just have to go in the break room.
Is that where you is that where you go, Mac? You know, Wilson's being mean to me. I know that's never.
Gotta run away.
I got to go to the break room.
He just hides in the corner over there. See, there's a little corner off camera in the news booth back there.
Just go to the corner and sob, and we all like each other. And
most,
of course, it
most
helps,
days, yeah.
And of course, it helps that I'm physically separated you by about 35 miles. So. Your car wants to know about your sex life.
What?
Yeah. Cars are increasingly filming, recording, and tracking drivers and passengers, according to a new report. Car manufacturers, and now this is true, I knew this, car manufacturers are collecting troves of data on drivers and passengers and some even tracking a driver's sexual activity, according to a new report. In a review of 25 car brands and 15 car companies published by Mozilla Foundation, researchers found that Japanese car manufacturer Nissan said it could sell information about drivers and passengers' sexual activity, intelligence, health diagnosis to data brokers, law enforcement agencies, and other companies. German manufacturer Volkswagen said it could record drivers' voices to profile them for target ads. Europeans are in principle more protected by abuse because they have different landmark privacy laws there. But in America, it's apparently fair game. It's not just about selling cars to make money anymore. It's about collecting data and then using that data to make money, said Cal Trider, adding cars seem to have worse privacy practices than mental health apps, smart home devices, and wearables like connected headphones and fitness trackers. Wow, connected headphones. Haven't thought about that one. Researchers also found that 84% of the car brands reviewed could share and sell data to other companies like data brokers, a market estimated in the hundreds of billions of euros and no telling how many American dollars. Just over half of these brands said they could share data with government and law enforcement when requested, rather than when receiving a court order. In some cases, European regulators have cracked down on the automotive industry, telling them that you can't do it. Tesla, which had its EU headquarters in the Netherlands, had to make changes to its cameras filming their surroundings in March at the request of a Dutch data protector regulator. Volkswagen was just fined over €1 million since this new guideline came on task. I mean, here's the thing you need to know. I mean, I'm going to break away from the story here just to tell you, you're upset about license plate readers. You're upset about, you have no expectation of privacy when you leave your home. But when you've bought and paid for a freaking car, you would expect that your privacy is going to be protected. And I'm telling you, your car is collecting a lot of data about you, and they sell that data. They sell that data. So I wish people would understand that there are so many devices. I mean, if you got Alexa, and I hate to say her name because now Alexa's all over the area are going off. Hello, Alexa. But I'm telling you, if you got an Alexa, if you've got a smartwatch, if you got a cell phone, if you get into your car, all of this data is compiled to make a profile of you as an individual. And then that information is sold to anybody who wants to know it. And who wants to know it? People who want to sell you things, for one thing. They want to know. People who want you to vote a certain way want to know what your proclivities are, what your political proclivities are. So that's pretty bizarre. You would think that you'd be okay in your car, but believe me or not, your car is spying on you, and you have to be very clever to find ways to make it stop. You have to really, really work hard at it. So just a heads up, your car's watching. Your car is listening.
Scary.
It is really scary. It really is. And then these are just weird stories, amalgams of weird stories. I was surprised to hear this. Most married women still take their husband's last name. Nearly 80% of women in opposite-sex marriages, that's male-female marriages, still choose to take their spouse's last name, a new study says. Here, according to this, Pew Research Center found that 79% of women in opposite-sex marriage take their spouse's last name. Younger women with postgraduate degrees were the most likely to keep their last name after marriage. And a small percentage of men choose to challenge tradition and take their wife's last name, the survey found. Almost 80% of, I don't know anybody who did that. Well, actually, I do know one guy who did that. He took it on as his middle name, and it was a hyphenated name.
Interesting.
Robertson Baker. Robertson-Baker. Robertson was the name of the woman he married. Almost 80% of women in opposite-sex marriage are still choosing to take their husband's last name. It was a survey of 2,437 people. So, I mean, okay, take it for what it's worth. The report showed 20% of married women between the ages of 18 and 49 kept their last name, while 9% of women 50 years old and older chose to do the same. It goes on, but I mean, overall, 80%. I got to say, that was surprising to me. That's rather traditional, at a time when tradition seems to be going by the wayside. It is 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. When we get to retirement, what do we want to do? We want to go and kick back, right? But we also want to take an income from our investment portfolios. And there are a lot of common myths that I hear about how do you take an income from an investment portfolio. One is that people will get into, this was really big a few years ago, really big, real estate investment trust. Now, real estate gets rented and it kicks off an income, and then you have some kind of dividend that's paid, and because the REIT has to pay out most of the dividend, it's a great way to take income in retirement. But what happens, like what happened recently, when all of a sudden the properties go unrented? What happens to your income? Bye-bye, it's gone. Another thing that I see is this: people buy stocks or stock mutual funds that are dividend paying, and what we'll do is we'll live off the dividends. Well, what is the dividend? It's part of the earnings of the company. So you got the earnings of the company, right? And then what happens is the company may pay out some of the dividend, and they call that a dividend when they pay it out, or they may retain some of it, and it's called retained earnings. Well, the problem is this: what if the company's earnings go down, just like the real estate investment trust up here? What if the earnings go down? What happens to your dividend? It goes away. All of a sudden, it's bye-bye to your retirement income. So what do we want to do? We want to diversify way better. If you look at the academic research on investing and how to take income from a portfolio, quite often what it is saying, okay, I'm going to have some money in various asset classes. Large companies, small companies, value companies, growth companies, international companies, short-term bonds and intermediate bonds, and so on and so forth. And what I do is I look at these different areas of the market. They have a historic return. And what happens if the portfolio does, this area of the market does better than this one? Well, in that particular year, I'm going to take income from this part of the portfolio. Then the next year, maybe this area does better than everything else. I'll take income from there. So what I'm doing is diversifying, which is an age-old concept. I mean, good grief, Nobel Prize winning concept of investing. And I actually apply it to taking income from a portfolio. So why is it that we often see this kind of stuff? It's because of the fees and the commissions and all of the incentives to sell you things that maybe aren't in your best interest. And a lot of advisors, you look at it, they aren't held to a fiduciary standard. In other words, they don't have to keep your best interest first. Paul Winkler, Inc., we hold ourselves voluntarily to that standard, and we actually disclose it in our disclosure brochures. So if you want to know more about what we do and learn more and educate along the way, go to paulwinkler.com. Set up a free 15-minute phone call so that you can learn more, become an educated investor. First step is easy. paulwinkler.com, free 15-minute phone call, and get started ASAP, because you can't afford to wait. You've got to make sure you get this right. You don't get a second shot.
An alleged shooting on the roads in Clarksville, former Donald Trump aide Peter Navarro found guilty of criminal contempt of Congress. A massive airbag recall could be looming, and NFL football is back. Those stories and more coming up at 5. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
So I understand I irritated, Chris, a listener about my policy regarding speed bumps.
Yeah. He's rather upset. He says, don't be barreling through my neighborhood at speed. You might not be heard from again.
Well, here's the thing. I am a law-abiding citizen, and I try to do my very best. But it seems to me that what really irritates me about the speed limits is that they're entirely too slow. And people, it's everything in life should be sort of a risk versus benefit. What is the risk versus the benefit? Well, the benefit of a higher speed limit is that you get there quicker, okay? And you're saving time. You can be more productive. The downside to having a very slow is that people will largely ignore it because it's ridiculously slow. At 15 miles an hour, it's ridiculously slow. Yes, people are going to not drive 15 miles an hour because it's just insane to expect people can drive that slow. Hurts my motor to go so slow. Time I get home, my supper be cold. To quote James Taylor. It is 57 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let's talk about Everseal, and we start with an explanation of what it is. It is a sealant. It's been around for a long time. Mostly it was used in industrial applications. And the folks at Everseal, well, they figured out how to provide a permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. Now, they'll come in and they'll start by doing a deep cleaning. Make sure that your wood and concrete looks as good as it possibly can look. And then they'll apply their patented sealant, which absorbs all the way through. It doesn't just not a coating. It absorbs into the product, becomes a permanent part of your wood and concrete, and will prevent further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. Think about how much money you could save if you're not having to do this year after year after year after year. Do it one time, forget about it. Enjoy your property instead of working on it all the time. This sounds like something you'd be interested in. Why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal? I'm going to give you the number. Write it down. 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Or you can go to their website to learn more, ever-seal.com.
Five o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top story. It's currently 83 degrees in Nashville. Some sunny and clear skies ahead these next few days. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Right now in Clarksville, police investigating after they were called about a driver shooting at another vehicle. Officials say it happened near 101st Airborne Division Parkway near Peachers Mill Road. Multiple cars were allegedly hit because of this incident. As of 4:15, the westbound lanes are closed. This comes after yesterday in Clarksville when there was another shooting on the roads. And in D.C., a jury has found former Trump advisor Peter Navarro guilty on 2 counts of criminal contempt of Congress. Prosecutors say Navarro tried to act above the law by refusing to provide documents and testimony to the House Select January 6 committee. Navarro's attorneys say they plan to appeal, claiming he was, quote, communicative with congressional investigators. And after learning the jury's decision, Navarro walked out of the courthouse and denounced the verdict.
Sad day for America, not because they were guilty verdicts, because I can't come out and have an honest, decent conversation with the people of America.
Navarro was the director of the White House Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy under Donald Trump. In Pennsylvania, an all-hands-on-deck manhunt underway, searching for escaped murderer Danilo Cavalcante, shown on released video scaling a wall to reach the roof of the Chester County Prison on August 31st. Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens of the Pennsylvania State Police today saying authorities believe the 34-year-old convicted killer is still nearby, and they think his basic needs will flush him out of hiding.
Cavalcante has clearly already obtained some clothing and other unknown supplies, and we want to minimize any opportunity that he might have to get anything more.
They believe that he is within a 8 to 10 square mile radius. And another massive airbag recall may be coming. Kana Whitworth with the report.
We're talking about 52 million airbag inflators that could currently be posing a risk of serious injury, even death. And that's according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. This is prompting a new push by them for a massive recall affecting up to 25 million vehicles on American roads.
And this part made by a company called ARC. It's based in Tennessee and used by automakers that include BMW, Ford, GM, Hyundai, Kia, Maserati, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Tesla, Toyota, and Volkswagen. And some sports news. The NFL regular season kicks off tonight with the reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Detroit Lions tonight at 7:25. And then Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans open up their season on Sunday at noon on the road against the New Orleans Saints. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, everybody, it's 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, hour number 3 of The Drive. We're so glad you're with us here. And, man, have I got some stuff here for you. I mean, I haven't made many bold predictions about the outcome of the 2024 presidential matchup. I've simply said that, you know, on the Republican side of it, it would be very hard for anybody other than Donald Trump to emerge as the winner the way things look right now. I mean, I saw a poll where he's like 45 points ahead of DeSantis. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, there's Donald Trump and then there's everybody else. And so that number is, you know, I think that, you know, short of some surprise that we can't foresee, Donald Trump will become the Republican nominee. And the other bold prediction that I've made is that I can't imagine that Democrats are going to nominate Joe Biden. I mean, he stumbles and he bumbles, and there's all this investigative stuff going on with the Republicans in the House. And I just can't see where, the Democrats are going to be very enthusiastic about a Biden-Harris ticket. And so I say, I don't know who's going to be the nominee. I can't tell you how it's going to play out, but I just can't imagine that they will go into the general election with Joe Biden as their nominee. And so I don't think he's going to be the nominee. And so it was with that in mind that I read this story this morning and I went, holy crap. I mean, I'm telling you, Joe Biden numbers are abysmal. I can't imagine anybody making this guy president, given how they feel about him. Now, it all comes down to who gets nominated and where your loyalties lie and a whole bunch of other things when people actually go to the polls. But if you let me for just a few moments share something with you that comes from a CNN poll, you're going to get a sense of what I'm talking about. The poll was so bad for Joe Biden that the CNN anchor started off with this word. Oof. Oof. Oof, these numbers are bad. Holy moly. Oof. Oof. Just how bad are they? Well, here's a sample of it, okay? This is how they opened up their show this morning with their brand new CNN poll. Now, bear with me because there are numbers in here that are going to shock and surprise you. You ready?
Oof, problematic new polling numbers out this morning for President Biden. The CNN poll finds his approval rating sinking to just 39%. Democrats on notice as the 2024 race for the White House heats up. Among voters' concerns, Biden's age. They're worried about his mental and physical competence, along with how well he understands the concerns of future generations of Americans. Another big issue, the economy. 58% say Biden's policies have made economic conditions worse.
That's right. I mean, how can you run for re-election if 58% of Americans say, you know what, Joe, things were pretty good for me until you became president, and now they're worse? Let me just go through some of these numbers. I mean, I got a whole bunch of stuff here. You're going to be shocked. Well, maybe you won't be. I just can't believe that they're going to nominate this guy. Views of Biden's performance in office on where the country stands, deeply negative in the new poll. Job approval rating, as you heard, 39%. 58% say his policies have made economic conditions in the U.S. worse. That's up 8 points since last fall. Since last fall, 1 year ago, about almost a year ago, it was at 50. Now it's at 58%. See, it's going in the wrong direction. 70% of Americans who were polled by CNN say things in the country are going badly. 51% saying the government should be doing more to solve the nation's problems. Perceptions of Biden personally are also broadly negative. 58% saying they have an unfavorable impression of him. Fewer than half of Americans, 45, say Biden cares about people like them. Only 33% describing him as someone they're proud to have as your president. They do a poll about the president of the United States and where they are, and they ask people the question, are you proud of Joe Biden as your president? And only 33% said that they were. Astonishing. Smaller share of the public than ever now says Biden inspires confidence, only 28%. That's down 7 points since March. or that he has the stamina and sharpness to serve effectively as president. Only 26% believe that, down 6 points since March. I mean, the trends are bad. The numbers are abysmal. Roughly 3/4 of Americans say they're seriously concerned that Biden's age might negatively affect his current level of physical and mental competence, 73%. One of the reasons why I find this poll rather, something to look at. You say, well, it's CNN, can you trust it? It really runs parallel to other polls that I generally do trust. I mean, that's right there with the number that came out the other day from the Wall Street Journal. His ability to serve out another full term if reelected, only 76%. His mental incompetence will impact his ability to serve out another full term. 68% majority seriously concerned about his ability to understand the next generation's concerns. That stands at, that's young people. 68% seriously concerned about his ability to understand the next generation's concerns. Young people were a major voting bloc for Biden. But 68% of those who surveyed said that they have real doubts about his ability to understand the concerns of the next generation. However, a broad majority believe that as much as we hate him, he's probably going to become the Democrat nominee. We'll see how that all plays out. There's more from this. One of the questions that they asked regards the investigation being done by the Republicans in the House, and they asked the question of about whether or not you think inappropriate or unethical things happened or illegal things happened back when Joe Biden was vice president in the Obama administration. Listen to this.
We're talking about, Dana, here, the time when he was vice president, right? Whether Joe Biden was involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings at the time he served as vice president. Overall, if you look here, 61% of Americans think Joe Biden was involved. You can see partisanship drives this, right? Obviously, nearly all Republicans, 90%, believe that. This has been a major storyline and talking point on Fox News and elsewhere. 64% of independents believe that Biden was involved in Hunter's business dealings. 28% of Democrats. And I want to show you, of that 61% overall there that believe he had dealings, 42%, Dana, think that Joe Biden acted illegally when he was vice president in those business dealings. 38% say not involved. 18% said he acted unethically but not illegally. But that is a significant number as well.
So let me unpack some of that for you. It is interesting that 64% of independents believe that he either acted illegally or inappropriately. 28% of Democrats believe that when he was vice president, he acted illegally or inappropriately. And 90% of Republicans. The overall number there, 61%, believe that he acted illegally or inappropriately in Hunter Biden's dealings when he was vice president of the United States. Wow. I always look at the independent number because you know what Republicans will be, you know where Democrats are going to be. Where are the independent? They go left, they go right. It's hard to know what they're going to do. If I'm a Democrat and I'm looking at these numbers from that perspective, that number right there, 64% of independents believe that he acted either illegally or inappropriately in Hunter Biden's business dealings when he was vice president, is got to be a scary number. More than half, 60%, 61% believe that he was involved in those kinds of dealings when he was vice president. What about as president? Here's what they say.
And when you look here about President Biden now serving as president, his actions in the Hunter Biden probe, have they been appropriate or not? 55% of Americans, a majority, believe Biden's actions related to the Hunter Biden probe inappropriate. 24% of Democrats, again, a majority of independents, 52%, and nearly all Republicans at 90% believe that. And this is to show what happens when you don't push back at all, which is really basically what the White House has been doing. There's not been a Hunter Biden defense kind of mounted in a public relations way, and it's starting to seep through beyond just the right-wing echo chamber we're seeing.
All right, so if it's not going to be Biden, who would it be? Well, Kamala Harris got on the record with CBS News, and she wants you to know that she's ready. If needed, she would be ready.
So you're 58 now. If you win a second term, as you and the president are running to do, he would be 86 at the end of it. The Wall Street Journal had a poll showing 2/3 of Democrats say Joe Biden is too old to run again. Are you prepared to be commander-in-chief?
Yes, I am, if necessary. But Joe Biden is going to be fine. And let me tell you something. I work with Joe Biden every day. The work that under Joe Biden's leadership our administration has accomplished is transformative. I think the American people most of all want a leader who actually gets things done.
These numbers are abysmal. And so we're looking at Biden numbers, and they're bad. Let me tell you something. They're worse for Kamala Harris. You know, apparently she has been warned not to cackle. And so in this interview on CBS News, she was very somber and very serious and never cackled. Not once. That's bad. That is just bad. Okay, so I don't know who it's going to be, but listen to this. There's more bad news. This comes from, are you ready? Remember, Democrats, what we're doing here is that CNN, an organ mostly of the left, is basically sending up a flare to Democrats. You've got a problem if you think this guy can win. Now here's the New York Times, another organ of the left. We're eavesdropping. This is the Democrats talking among themselves. Here you go. Joe Biden's black and Hispanic polling numbers the worst since Walter Mondale in '84. Biden's weakness among non-white voters is broad, spanning virtually every demographic category and racial group. He has a 72-11 lead among black voters. And you say, well, that sounds pretty good. No. In 2020, he had 20 more points. He was at 92% of the black vote. Hispanic voters right now, 47% say they would support him. But when he ran in 2020, he got 59%. 59% of the Hispanic vote. Over 5 presidential elections since 2000, the Democrat candidate has averaged 91% of the black vote. Democrats have lost ground among non-white voters in almost every election over the last decade, even as racially charged fights over everything from a border wall to kneeling during the national anthem, you might expect to produce an exact opposite result. Black voters are leaving the Biden train. They're getting off the Biden train, and so are Hispanic voters. That's got to be scary. I mean, that's really got to be scary. But coming up in just a moment, another thing that CNN did that I think you're going to find really interesting is that they said, okay, if Trump is going to be let's say a nominee is going to be, let me start again. If the nominee is going to be Joe Biden from the Democrat side of the equation, how would he do against all of the various Republicans who are running? Okay, we're going to go through that because there's a shocking statistic in this that I don't think any of us saw coming. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
The landscape of artificial intelligence changing as we speak. A manhunt in Pennsylvania that's been ongoing for a week. An update on a man that was shot in the head and lived right here in Tennessee. I'll have those stories and more. 5:30 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. We're talking about these abysmal numbers for Joe Biden. I still can't imagine that Democrats are going to nominate this guy to be their presidential candidate in the upcoming 2024 campaign. I just don't know how it's going to be resolved. But the numbers, I'm telling you, are terrible. One other thing that CNN did, and you take this with a grain of salt if you want. I mean, look, I'm not going to tell you anything other than the truth. If you look at most of the polls, Donald Trump he's on track. I saw one poll where 65% of Republicans are now ready to support Donald Trump in a reelection effort, which means, virtually little chance of anybody overcoming that unless something were to happen that we can't foresee. But they went ahead, the folks at CNN decided they would take a look. Okay, well, if Biden is the Democrat nominee, let's assume that for a moment, because they're trying to measure Biden's strength, and what they're trying to do is tell Democrats that the guy's, not likely to get there. Despite the bad numbers, if it were a showdown between Biden and Trump, according to CNN, Trump would lead by 1%. In other words, it would be Biden 46, Trump 47. Now, that's well within the margin of error. And, we hear from the former president all the time, there are so many polls out there where I'm leading. Well, there are polls where he's in the margin of error. I have not seen one poll that's not within the margin of error. It is a very, very close race if it comes down to Trump versus Biden. But in this poll, it said Trump would win by 1. Okay. What about DeSantis? If Biden were to go against DeSantis, it would be a tie. Again, 50-50. Ramaswamy, Biden would actually win by 1, according to the CNN poll. But that's, again, essentially within the margin of error and basically a tie. If Pence were somehow to become the nominee, and I can't imagine a scenario where that happens, but let's say Pence became the nominee, in a national matchup, Pence would defeat Biden by 2 points. Tim Scott would defeat Biden by 2 points. Chris Christie, again, don't think it's going to happen, but Chris Christie, if paired against Biden, would win by 2 points according to this poll. Here's the shocker. If Biden were to go up against Nikki Haley, according to the CNN poll, Haley would win by 6. I got to tell you, I didn't see that coming. Biden 43, Haley 49. The candidate that tests best in this CNN poll against Joe Biden was Nikki Haley. Now, again, the way I look at it right now, I don't see anybody winning the Republican nomination other than Trump, unless there is something that happens on the horizon that we do not foresee. But isn't that interesting? This is not just, when you talk about 65% of the vote, that's Republican voters that they're polling. All right? But when you get to this poll, it's all Americans. Conservative Republicans, liberal Democrats, and the mushy middle. And when you put all those numbers together, CNN says it's Nikki Haley. Now, again, I don't think Nikki Haley has much of a chance of becoming the nominee. But isn't that interesting? I thought it was really interesting. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. It's one poll. Polls, everybody said, you can't believe the polls. You can't believe a CNN poll. As I said, I found this poll to be in keeping with other polls that I had seen on some key issues. So I don't think it's way out of line with the polls, but understand, and I always need to say this, I forget to say it sometimes, a poll is a snapshot of where we are today. A poll is a snapshot. It's never to be taken as a prediction. It's only supposed to be a look at where we think the electorate is today. And this is where the CNN poll, on one hand, the CNN poll says Joe Biden, his numbers are just ridiculously bad. until you put him up against Trump, and then it's a virtual tie. It's interesting how that plays out. And again, remember, snapshot. We're not making a prediction. We're just saying that's where people are today. Still a lot of time before people cast their ballots. 30 minutes now, past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
"30 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 82 degrees, a sunny day in Nashville, and expecting a lot of the same. Clear skies and highs in the mid-80s with lows in the mid-60s these next few days. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Artificial intelligence. It's quickly moved from science fiction to science fact, and now the attorneys general in all 50 states say they're worried about that. Andy Field tells us what they plan to do.
Every U.S. state attorney general writing to Congress that artificial intelligence could generate child sexual abuse material. They're asking lawmakers to study the problem and then write laws to prevent it. Some of the worry centers around AI looking at pictures of actual abused children and generating new realistic images of them in sexual situations. Those top state law enforcers saying they're trying to get ahead of AI abuse.
And the United States also trying to make sure they have the edge on AI over China. In Pennsylvania, it's been 1 week since convicted murderer Danilo Cavalcante scaled the walls of a country prison and sparked a massive manhunt. Former FBI agent Brad Garrett says the search teams are combing a heavy forested area and could walk by Cavalcante without knowing it unless there is a dog to sniff him out.
I totally get the local population's frustration with the amount of time and that they're really not getting any new information out of these press conferences per se, other than the police are busy, have a lot of people, and they're doing the best they can, which I'm sure is true.
And right now in Nashville, the man shot in the head in Old Hickory yesterday had an order of protection against him. Metro police say 29-year-old Decorian Scott was arrested in February, and then yesterday morning he allegedly threatened to kill and strangled 29-year-old Aisha Sweeney. Sweeney tells police she pulled a pistol from her purse and shot Scott in self-defense. Scott is now being treated at Skyline Medical Center. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the folks over at Genesis Diamonds. One of the things I love about Genesis Diamonds is the laid-back feel, the vibe, the relaxed feeling you get when you walk in. There are no commission salespeople at Genesis, never 1 ounce of pressure. They're never going to be the kind of bully you into buying something that you don't want. If you're a diamond expert, if you don't know anything about diamonds, they will make you feel at home and at ease. You can see a wide array of GIA certified diamonds, all in your price range, every shape. Or if you're looking at lab-grown diamonds, Genesis has those as well at prices way below what others are selling them for. All this plus free service for life on any purchase. Designer jewelers that you can't find at other stores. 110% diamond upgrade guarantee. And by the way, an incredible selection of pristine luxury pre-owned Rolexes. This is Nashville's premier jeweler. Voted time and time again as the best place to buy an engagement ring and best jewelry store in Middle Tennessee. Rings, earrings, bands, bracelets, colored gemstone jewelry, all at prices other stores could only dream that they could offer. For your special occasion coming up, get the most value, the highest quality, and the best overall experience. That's at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills, and Cool Springs. It is 38 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair on this Thursday. Feels like a Wednesday, Thursday, September 7th. Glad you're with us. I believe wholeheartedly, the way things stand right now, that Donald Trump will become the Republican nominee. But there are things that are burbling out there, and I would be less than diligent in my duties if I did not make sure that you knew about them. That's part of what I have to do. Let me just say that sometimes in talk radio, there are people who tell you the things that they think you want to hear. And I do some of that. I mean, because I think, I'm in sync with you. So you and I believe a lot of the same things. But sometimes it's the responsibility of the host of a program like this, I think, to share with you things that you may not like to hear them, but you need to hear them because you need to know they're out there. Okay. So it's with that prelude that I just laid down. Let me get to this story. A liberal watchdog filed a lawsuit in Colorado seeking to have former President Donald Trump disqualified from the 2024 presidential ballot in the state. The Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington said it filed the lawsuit in a district court in Denver on behalf of 6 Republicans and non-affiliated voters who claim Trump is ineligible under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Lawsuit alleges Trump violated his constitutional oath as president when he incited an insurrection on January 6th. So this is happening, and the question is this a legal argument that holds water? And the answer is, I'm not sure. But I can tell you what people are saying about it. You know, is this the test case? It would seem that it would be. The Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies from public office those who swore to defend the Constitution and then engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States or aided its enemies. Lawmakers drafted the section during Reconstruction, and the whole idea here was to prevent Confederates who rose up in arms against the Union from seizing back power through the ballot box. That's what it was. January 6, 2021, Section 3 was, until then, was largely regarded as a Civil War remnant, largely forgotten and seldom litigated. After January 6th, it got a fresh look from constitutional scholars and people who hate Trump, including some prominent conservative academics who have concluded that Section 3 could be used against Donald Trump. This argument fleshed out most fully in a 126-page forthcoming law review article by a couple of legal eagles in Chicago and University of St. Thomas. They say that Trump assembled and whipped up a massive mob with incendiary claims about a stolen election, called for urgent action to stop Congress from certifying Joe Biden's election. They say his conduct should disqualify him from the race. Okay. That's what they say. Trump, in his Truth Social post Monday, called the disqualification effort against him a trick to steal the upcoming election, and that almost all legal scholars doubt its legal basis. Trump's Republican primary opponents have stayed largely quiet on the issue, with the exception of Asa Hutchinson, who said that Trump's actions on January 6th could disqualify him. Now, Trump isn't alone in pushing back. Here's the other side of the story. By the way, I'm reading from a lengthy article in the Wall Street Journal. Other legal scholars, including Harvard law professor Noah Feldman, Stanford law professor and former federal appeals court judge Michael McConnell, say they are dubious about the eligibility case against him. Far from clear, some legal thinkers say it is whether state election authorities are empowered to enforce Section 3. State election authority. Do they have the authority to enforce Section 3 against a president and a candidate? They point to an 1869 Circuit Court opinion by Chief Justice Salmon Chase involving a freed slave who challenged the validity of the felony conviction on the grounds that the judge who found him guilty was a secessionist who should have been disqualified under Section 3. So Chase upheld the conviction and set a precedent that litigants couldn't challenge a candidate's eligibility under Section 3 without legislation from Congress authorizing such lawsuits. Not likely to happen. So no such federal legislation exists today, a potential complication for any litigants trying to eject Trump. I bring you all this because it's something you're going to hear a lot about in the coming days. I'm not a legal expert. I play one on radio occasionally, but I'm not a lawyer. But I am telling you that this is going to be a discussion you're going to hear. And you're going to hear both sides. You're going to find those who say, no, he qualifies. I don't think he qualifies for one reason. I was there on January 6th. I was standing on the street. And everybody tries to make the case that he was on one end of Pennsylvania Avenue, 16 blocks away, whipping up the crowd into a frenzy, and that they all stormed down the street 16 blocks to the Capitol, and then, January 6th occurred. That's not the way I saw it. That's not the way I saw it at all. I'm not sure you can take the words of Donald Trump on one end of Pennsylvania Avenue and make the case that it had an impact on what happened on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. And I will believe that because I'm telling you, while Trump was talking on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, I was standing right there outside the Capitol, and I saw people making their way down there, and a lot of people were not listening at all to what the president was saying up on the other end of the street. They were just there. And what I also saw was the people who were there to cause trouble were already there. They weren't listening to the speech. They were already there. They came with a mission. Now, I don't think you can say Donald Trump was responsible for what happened on January 6th. I think you can say that, if you're trying to make the case that his speech was incendiary, I don't think that it was. He did talk an awful lot about how he felt the election was being stolen, the election was rigged, etc. And, maybe they're going to try to make that case. But, it's not what I saw on January 6th. I saw people, largely where I was from, peacefully congregating, using their First Amendment rights. I couldn't see it all. I could only see what I could see from where I could see it. But that's what I saw. And I don't think you can make the case that Trump gave a speech that had people so fired up that they roared down Pennsylvania Avenue 16 blocks, with pitchforks and torches to take over the Capitol. That's not what I saw. And I'll stand by that till the day I die. But there is going to be a discussion about the 14th Amendment. Trump, on the other hand, is fighting back in another way against this Georgia case. The judge overseeing former President Donald Trump's Georgia action, according to Fox 17, this is just a national story they had on their website, but I liked it. President Donald Trump's Georgia election subversion case was formally notified that Trump may try to move the case to federal court. Having a hearing in federal court could help him get the charges dropped by invoking immunity protections for federal officials. Trump's lawyer, Stephen Sato, notified the judge according to a court filing obtained by news media. President Trump hereby notifies the court that he may seek removal of his prosecution to federal court. To be timely, his notice of removal must be filed within 30 days of his arraignment. If the case is moved to a federal court, it would also allow the jury pool to be drawn from multiple states and not just Georgia, which, especially this part of Georgia, voted primarily for President Biden. Several of Trump's co-defendants are also trying to move their cases to federal court. Former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark, former Coffee County GOP Chair Kathy Latham, and former Georgia GOP David Schaefer are among the few. So this is something to watch in the days ahead. Look, here's what I'm going to tell you about all of the legal cases that are pending out there against Trump. Some of them, there's, 91 different indictments, I think, something like that. Do I have that right? I don't think that's right. I'll double-check that number. There's a bunch of them. A lot of these are going to evaporate before the trials begin. Trump's lawyers have only begun to do their job, and they're going to be out there filing motions, doing pretrial hearings, and a lot of these indictments I think are going to evaporate because they were overreach by the Democrats in each and every case. They were shooting for the moon, and they threw it out there, but didn't really think it was going to stick. They just wanted to make it look like we really got a case, and we're going to allege this and we're going to allege that. But that doesn't mean that those things will actually make it to trial. Again, I'm no legal expert, although I watched the entire series of Suits on TV.
That almost qualifies you then, I guess.
Really, I'm telling you, that was, I binged that.
And you were correct. It's 91 counts.
91 counts. Thank you. Okay, my memory was correct. Not all those 91 counts are going to last. Lawyers are going to do what lawyers do, and Trump's got good lawyers, and he's going to get a lot of these things dismissed. Maybe he'll get this thing moved to federal court, and that whole thing goes away completely. All I'm telling you here is there are things happening out there. There are legal battles that will be fought. And I want to make sure that, you can come to me and I'm going to give it to you as straight as I can see it. I still think that Trump is the nominee. And I'm not sure who the Democrat nominee is going to be, but I'm pretty sure Trump will be the nominee. I don't see anything that prevents him from becoming the nominee as it stands today. But we don't know what happens tomorrow, do we? 50 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. How you faring in the rough and tumble market out there? Up and down, up and down. The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. This number, 615-488-9303. You give the folks at Beacon a little information, they'll ask you a few questions, and then they will take it from there. I mean, what do you have to lose except for all the worry? Get started today by calling 615-488-9303, and at the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. All the T's have been crossed, all the I's have been dotted. Again, that number is 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. When we get to retirement, what do we want to do? We want to go and kick back, right? But we also want to take an income from our investment portfolios. And there are a lot of common myths that I hear about how do you take an income from an investment portfolio. One is that people will get into, this was really big a few years ago, really big, real estate investment trust. Now, real estate gets rented and it kicks off an income, and then you have some kind of dividend that's paid, and because the REIT has to pay out most of the dividend, it's a great way to take income in retirement. But what happens, like what happened recently, when all of a sudden the properties go unrented? What happens to your income? Bye-bye, it's gone. Another thing that I see is this. People buy stocks or stock mutual funds that are dividend paying. And what we'll do is we'll live off the dividends. Well, what is the dividend? It's part of the earnings of the company. So you got the earnings of the company, right? And then what happens is the company may pay out some of the dividend, and they call that a dividend when they pay it out, or they may retain some of it, and it's called retained earnings. Well, the problem is this. What if the company's earnings go down? Just like the real estate investment trust up here, what if the earnings go down? What happens to your dividend? It goes away. All of a sudden, it's bye-bye to your retirement income. So what do we want to do? We want to diversify way better. If you look at the academic research on investing and how to take income from a portfolio, quite often what it is saying, okay, I'm going to have some money in various asset classes. Large companies, small companies, value companies, growth companies, international companies, short-term bonds and intermediate bonds, and so on and so forth. And what I do is I look at these different areas of the market, and they have a historic return. And what happens if the portfolio does, this area of the market does better than this one? Well, in that particular year, I'm going to take income from this part of the portfolio. Then the next year, maybe this area does better than everything else. I'll take income from there. So what I'm doing is diversifying, which is an age-old concept. I mean, good grief, Nobel Prize winning concept of investing. And I actually apply it to taking income from a portfolio. So why is it that we often see this kind of stuff? It's because of the fees and the commissions and all of the incentives to sell you things that maybe aren't in your best interest. And a lot of advisors, you look at it, they aren't held to a fiduciary standard. In other words, they don't have to keep your best interest first. Paul Winkler, Inc., we hold ourselves voluntarily to that standard, and we actually disclose it in our disclosure brochures. So if you want to know more about what we do and learn more and educate along the way, go to paulwinkler.com. Set up a free 15-minute phone call so that you can learn more, become an educated investor. First step is easy. paulwinkler.com, free 15-minute phone call, and get started ASAP, because you can't afford to wait. You've got to make sure you get this right. You don't get a second shot.
Hey, if you have the desire to add gold or silver to your portfolio, listen up. I want to tell you about Nashville Gold and Coin. If you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, this is the place that I do business. It's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. Now, they also specialize, and this is pretty cool, in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. Do you have any idea how much those old coins you have laying around might be worth? This is my experience. I brought in a few silver coins I had in a shoebox. I was buried in my sock drawer, and it turned out to be worth $1,652. Now, whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Just go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's the place to check in, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
It's 6 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 81 degrees, a sunny day, and a few of those left this week. Looks like all clear skies and sunny skies. Weekend weather forecast and the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. The Senate Energy Committee this morning holding a hearing on artificial intelligence. In the committee, hearing testimony from the Department of Energy and AI experts. Jay O'Brien.
The DOE governs the United States nuclear arsenal, and they use supercomputers to maintain that nuclear arsenal. So they have these massive supercomputers that use artificial intelligence, but can also be deployed on other things. And so one of the things that this committee is interested in delving into is the notion of how artificial intelligence plays into those supercomputers to make sure those supercomputers are used for the right things rather than the wrong things.
And the United States also trying to make sure they have the edge on artificial intelligence over China. And some news concerning former President Donald Trump. A jury has found former Trump advisor Peter Navarro guilty of defying a subpoena issued in February 2022 by the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol attack. Navarro, who under Trump was director of the White House Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy, is being tried on contempt of Congress charges after he was indicted by a grand jury in June. In Kentucky, a Louisville police officer in critical condition after being shot this morning. The shots came from a house while a traffic stop was being conducted. One officer was shot in the torso. The other officer on the scene returned fire. There are 3 people that have been detained. No arrests have been made. And some audio from the shooting that we obtained from Broadcastify.
Watch your back. Cover that. One of those houses over there, the shot came from the front door.
The body cam footage of this incident supposed to be released in 10 days. And some sad entertainment news. Former That 70s Show star Danny Masterson has been sentenced to 30 years to life in prison after being convicted of raping several women. Here's Jason Nathanson.
Danny Masterson didn't speak as he was sentenced in court Thursday to 30 years to life. 2 15-year life sentences that he'll have to serve back-to-back, not consecutively, as his lawyers had asked for. He was convicted of sexually assaulting 3 women between 2001 and 2003 at his home in the Hollywood Hills, the victims reading impact statements, all in tears, one describing the severe PTSD and waves of panic she suffers because of the abuse. Masterson's attorneys say they'll appeal.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It is 6 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. One more hour, and then we're done for this Thursday. Hand it over to Mark Levin, who will carry on. So glad that you're with us on this Thursday, the September 7th. The border situation is driving people who live in major cities around this country a little bit crazy. And in New York City, for example, they are just beside themselves. They say this is going to destroy our city. I mean, let's be honest about it. On one hand, I find it a little difficult because these were the same cities that went out of their way to say, we are a sanctuary city. Yes, just come to L.A., just come to Chicago. Come to the warm, supple bosom of New York City. And we will embrace you. We will take care of you. We're sorry that you're having such a rough time in the country where you live, and we'll try to make it all better for you. And so, this is the kind of message that they sent out. And this is the kind of message that was heard. Come to a sanctuary city. We will provide you sanctuary. But as it turned out, the people who have gone to New York City are driving the people in New York City mad. Insane. Here is Mayor Eric Adams. This is about 2 minutes. I may stop it as we go along here because there are just things that he says I just want to, whoa, wait, that kind of thing. Here we go. Eric Adams saying that the migrants who have come to his city are going to destroy it.
Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City.
Well, how about that? I mean, they're coming from not just Central America, not just Mexico, not just from South America. Now they're coming from Russia and West Africa and all kinds of places. Why? Because people understand that when there's chaos on the border and they want to come into this country and beat the system, that all they got to do is show up on the border no matter where they're from and they'll be let in. But I digress.
And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you ask me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do, and they're destroying New York City?
I mean, I wonder how many of them were of the movement to say, hey, let's make this a sanctuary city. No.
It's going to come to your neighborhoods. All of us are going to be impacted by this. I said it last year when we had 15,000. I'm telling you now, with 110,000, the city we knew we're about to lose. And we're all in this together. All of us. Staten Island is saying, send them out to Manhattan. Manhattan is saying, send them out to Queens. Queens is saying, send them out to Brooklyn. No. It's not the game we can play. Open the floor up.
Open the floor up. Let's have a conversation about it. Okay, well, I mean, a lot of things that I need to unpack there. Number one, he says 110,000, and he didn't say it necessarily in this particular clip, but he often points to the governor of Texas as the real enemy here. Hold on a minute. Let's do a little fact checking. Let's run some numbers. What do you say? 110,000. How many of them were sent from the state of Texas on buses by the governor? About 12%, about 13,000 out of 110,000. So, it's not necessarily the governor's fault. The governor was brilliant, I think, in making folks in New York City, have them understand, you want to be a sanctuary city? Well, this is what it is to be a sanctuary city. Good luck with it. This is what we've been dealing with down on the border forever. What I didn't hear in any of this 2-minute and 30-second soundbite from the mayor of New York City, a Democrat, is a reference to who caused the problem. The problem wasn't caused by the previous administration. The problem was caused by the Biden administration. He never mentioned Biden one time in all of that. Not one time. He never mentioned Alejandro Mayorkas, the person in charge, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. That's who you need to turn to. You can't blame the Border Patrol, and you can't blame ICE. They're doing the best they can under the restrictions that have been placed on them. They know how to fix this problem. You and I know how to fix this problem, and this whole dadgum problem could be fixed in 1 minute by the current president of the United States, but he doesn't want that. No. The Democrats, on one hand, they say, we want these people to come in because, quite frankly, we think that someday they'll become citizens. Someday they'll be able to vote in national elections, and they will be beholden to us because we let them into the country. They believe that. And so they're turning their head the other way. They're looking. Understand, every single time a person comes across the border, that person had to pay money to the cartels. So not only are you destroying the fabric of America, not only are we not paying attention to our southernmost border, and we really don't have a border. It's just a wide open. It's just like it's the Wild West out there. That's what you got. You're also emboldening the cartels. Really, we should be fighting the cartels, not making sure that they are making money hand over fist. Now, cartels are also responsible for, I would say, 1.6 million people who came into this country that didn't want to have contact with law enforcement. A lot of these people coming across, they pay the cartels to get them there, and then when they come across the river, the first thing they want to do is reach out to somebody in the Border Patrol because they know they're going to get a little piece of paper and sent on their way, put on a plane, put on a bus, put on whatever. But what they're going to make their way into America and just disappear. Oh yeah, they had that piece of paper. That's all they had to say. Well, hey, we'd really appreciate it if you would check in at some point. At some point, we may need you to show up in court to express, to explain what's going on and where you are. They're not going to do that. Why would you? They evaporate into the fabric of America. So, look, you can't blame the state of Texas, and you can't blame the previous administration. Let's lay fault with whom it lie. It lay with the president of the United States. Did I get that right? Lie, lay, lane, I don't know. I can't remember. But the responsibility lies at the feet of this president and his administration. And you can't, on one hand, say, we want you to come to America because we have plans for you someday to become voters, and we're excited to have you here, and we open up the doors. On one hand, you can't do that. And then on the other hand, say, we don't want you to come to New York City. We don't want you here. We've got a crisis on our hands because so many people are coming to New York City. Oh, well, blame the Biden administration. Shut down the border and make them shut down the border. Obviously, if you're a resident of how is this going to work out for Democrats? Democrats, think they can actually count on the support of Democrat voters in major metropolitan cities. But major metropolitan cities are in turmoil largely because migrants are going there and it's costing them a lot of money and they're sleeping on the streets. They have no place to go. You've got to get them a place to live. You got to get them a place to eat. You got to put clothes on their back, and you got to teach their kids in school. It's going to cost you billions and billions of dollars. So on one hand, you can't say, hey, welcome to America, we're glad to have you, and then complain on the other side. But do you think that Democrats in these major cities are going to vote to reelect Joe Biden? No, they're hacked off about what's happening to their city. They see their cities deteriorating because of the open border policies of this administration. I don't think it's going to work out very well for them at all. Not at all. Related to this, the House Homeland Security Committee, which is led by Chairman Mark Green, Republican of Tennessee, has just put out a 62-page report blaming DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for the problem, saying he has emboldened cartels, criminals, and America's enemies. It is this committee's conclusion that Mayorkas and Biden's policies have emboldened and enriched the cartels, ceded control of America's sovereign southwest border to these organizations, and jeopardized the safety and security of individuals and communities across the country in the process. Through conversations with border security and law enforcement professionals, the committee found that the number of illegal immigrants and drugs moving across the southwest border daily shows the control of the cartels have of that area. We ought to be flying drones and taking out the cartel instead of making sure they get paid a lot of money. The report says, despite their best practices, border and security and law enforcement officials are only mitigating some of the consequences that the cartels control, and are being overwhelmed by border crossings, human smuggling, drug trafficking happening at the border. Wow. This is Mark Green doing good work, by the way. Kudos to him. The border is an unmitigated disaster. And it's bad for the people in Texas. It's bad for the people in New Mexico. It's bad for the people in Arizona. It's bad for the people in California. Any place you have a crossing point, it's bad. People are coming into this country, and Democrats are whining, but they're not blaming the right people. They're not blaming the people who are actually responsible for this policy. They need to focus their attention at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They need to focus their attention at a president who seems to be completely okay with what's happening on the border. They don't even want to go down there and look at it. In fact, largely they have not. So, I hear you, Mayor Adams. I'm sure sorry about the difficult time that you're having, but maybe you'll think twice before you decide to invoke your city as a sanctuary city. Come here. We will grant you sanctuary until we get completely pissed off about how many of you there really are. And then we will whine and we will cry, but we won't blame the right people. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You got a problem with your air conditioner? You got a problem with your plumbing? Call the people I would call at 615-775-7833. I'm talking, of course, about the folks over at Busy Bee, the people that I trust. They work on my systems, and I'm well pleased with the service that I've gotten so far. If you have a problem with your air conditioner, they'll buzz right over and fix it. Just give them a call. I had to do that recently, and they were up very, very quickly taking care of my problems. Now, sometimes you may find a situation where your system is so old that it's just you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. It's not going to really fix the problem, and it's time to replace. They're not meant to last forever. And if you get to that point, they'll give you all the options, but if you get to that point, let me tell you that you're not going to find a better deal on a replacement for HVAC or plumbing systems than you'll get at Busy Bee. I'm a member of the Beehive Club. For as little as $99, you can be too. You'll get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7, 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guarantee, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. It's about 25 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We're going to do the news here in just a little bit with our good friend Mac Maury. He's doing a great job. And we got Chris Weber there in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons. Always a pleasure to have him on. Days when I'm lucky. The mask situation, COVID-19 is rearing its ugly head again. I want to tell you right now, here are the facts as best I can discern them. I'm not a doctor. Check in with your own healthcare professional and get your guidance from that person. But let me just say, what I'm reading from doctors is that, okay, there's a new variant, and everybody goes, there's a new variant. We got to worry. There's a new variant coming. Well, apparently the doctors who are dealing with the new variant say it's not much. Now, if you have a compromised immune system, you need to take precautions. Don't get me wrong. Again, talk to your doctor about what you should do. But what I'm hearing is sniffles, cough. You sound like a cold. It's not like we had in the first round. And we've learned so much about how to treat it. That we're getting so much better at it as we go along. But this is not the thing to be. You should not compare this COVID to the original first round of COVID. Today on the Senate floor, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, a Republican. What I'm seeing of this guy, I like him a lot. Tried to come up with a plan to keep the federal government from imposing mask mandates on America. And he was trying to push it through very quickly. But the first voice you'll hear is J.D. Vance, and then you will hear Edward Markey talking about how this is a bad idea.
This policy does not set anything for an unlimited period of time. It says that for the next 15 months, the government can't force you to wear a mask on planes, on public transit, or in public schools. Taxpayer dollars cannot be used to force and enforce a mandate against our people. It's not setting a policy that we cannot deal with pandemics in the future. If something else comes, God forbid, then let this body deal with it at this time. But now let's learn the message, let's heed the message from the American people, and let's learn the lessons of the past couple of years. Mandatory masking was a failure. It had costs for very little benefits, and we shouldn't repeat it. Mr. President, as of in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S-2738, the Freedom to Breathe Act, which is at desk. Further, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Senator from Massachusetts.
This bill would undermine the ability of states, of cities, and towns across this country to make decisions about what's best for their communities. It would silence and hamstring public health experts who have guided our nation out of the darkest days of a pandemic.
Well, you know what? I don't think that's true. I think what he was saying is we don't want any federal money spent to impose a mask mandate. I think we can all, I don't know, maybe not everybody will agree, but I think most of us can agree the mask mandates really, honestly, did they change things? Were they a game changer in the first round of COVID? I don't think they were. I really don't think they were. And I'm just saying, you know, honestly, I like the idea that J.D. Vance has here. Come in and let's try to do something proactively. Let's try to get out there and say, look, we're just not going to do all those silly ass things that we did before. We're not going to be involved in that. So, you know, let's just come to terms and say we're not going to spend federal dollars on enforcing a mask mandate. But be honest with you, round one, early days, we didn't know what we were dealing with. I was one of those who got a mask and wore it. And over time, I quickly came to understand this is ridiculous. And if I wore it, it was to get on a plane. Or if I wore it, it was to, you know, because I was around somebody who I felt might be immunized, immune compromised is the word I'm trying to say. And I had relatives who were in that category. Out of courtesy and out of, you know, a request to not worry them, I wore the mask. I'm not wearing a mask again. And if I go to a store and they say you've got to wear the mask, then I'm not going to that store. If they try, I don't know. I guess, and if they tell me I can't get on a plane, I guess I'll drive. We did silly, over-the-top, overreaction things in COVID-1. Let's not do that again, okay? 6:30 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to talk to you about Rhino Shield. You know, if you're thinking about doing some painting around your house, the exterior of your home, I'm going to suggest that you think about a different approach. I mean, sure, you can paint it and it'll look great for a little while, and then it'll do what paint does. It'll start to crack and chip and peel. But if you were to Rhino Shield your house, well, then you'd have something that would last about 25 years. I mean, come on. A full quarter century, you wouldn't have to pick up a brush. Doesn't that sound good? You see, Rhino Shield is not paint. It's 10 times thicker than paint. It's infused with special 3M ingredients, billions of microspheres that allow the coating to expand and contract. And that's why they offer a 25-year warranty against cracking, chipping, and peeling. Clay Morris and the folks of Rhino Shield of Nashville have a great reputation. They care deeply about doing quality work. Amanda said her home turned out beautifully. Joan said the work was outstanding. My friend the Garretts had their 100-year-old country farm home done by the folks over at Rhino Shield, and they're so pleased they've got a couple of more projects that they're going to take them up with. So, I mean, well pleased. Sound like something you'd be interested in? Give Clay Morris a call, 615-474-1729. And as always, learn more at rhinoshieldnashville.com. "38 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair for just about another 22 minutes or so. Then we'll do the news, and then we'll be ready for some Mark Levin, the great one, will come in and take over. And you know, he comes in. I love it when he starts it. He's here. I love that.
Sounds impressive.
It's my favorite part. He's here. All right. I got a whole bunch of things here that I want to plow through, and some of this doesn't relate, one to the other. But I call this last half hour cleanup. I have some stuff that I think needs to get across the goal line, things we needed to chat about, and just didn't have time during the regular show, the rest of the show. Karine Jean-Pierre reveals in her. It's a glowing, slobbering Just, I mean, big old wet kiss from the people over at Vogue magazine they did on her. It came out, it's a September issue. And, of course, you expect Vogue magazine to talk about how wonderful she is. And it starts out, I think, talking about her bright colors and bold eyeshadow. But there were other issues as well. But the news that it sort of caught a lot of people by surprise is that apparently Karine Jean-Pierre has split from her partner, former CNN anchor Suzanne Malveaux. And they are continuing to be single moms who co-parent their adopted 9-year-old daughter Soleil, which is French for son. It's the only one of the few French words I know. I'm a single mom who is co-parenting this amazing kid, Jean-Pierre told the magazine. Our number one priority is her privacy and to make sure we create an environment that is nurturing. So this goes on. I mean, I'm telling you, this goes on and on and on and on and on. I did not know the details of this. Malveaux and Jean-Pierre met in 2012 at the Democrat National Committee in Charlotte, North Carolina. Malveaux was then a correspondent for CNN, and Jean-Pierre was working for President Barack Obama's re-election campaign. They moved in together in early 2014. And Malveaux left her CNN anchor job shortly after Jean-Pierre was promoted from deputy press secretary to principal press secretary. Malveaux had already started the adoption process when she and Jean-Pierre were dating. And so Jean-Pierre formally adopted Soleil as a co-parent a few years later. There you go. I'm not going to waste a lot of time at that, but I knew Suzanne Malveaux when I covered Washington. We would often find ourselves covering the same stories. I always liked her. I never even knew she was gay. Never had a clue. But apparently she was. And I was shocked and stunned to learn that she and Suzanne, Karine Jean-Pierre and Suzanne were actually living together. I didn't even know that. I'm so out of it, though. I got apparently, not to put too fine a point on it, I have no gaydar. You just don't have anything to say to that, do you?
I'm not touching it.
Rand Paul has been right about so much, hasn't he? I mean, especially when it comes to Anthony Fauci, etc. This story from hotair.com. Senator Rand Paul questions the diagnosis put forward about Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's episode freezes. He isn't buying the Capitol Hill physician's report that lays blame on dehydration. Now, Rand Paul is an ophthalmologist who has practiced medicine for more than 25 years. Dr. Brian Monahan said, there is no evidence that McConnell had a stroke or a seizure. Paul said it looked like a focal neurological event. I practiced medicine for 25 years, and it doesn't look like dehydration to me. It looks like a focal neurological event. That doesn't mean it's incapacitating, doesn't mean he can't serve, but it means that somebody ought to wake up and say, wow, this looks like a seizure. When Rand Paul went on to say, it doesn't mean McConnell can't serve. I've consulted with Leader McConnell and conferred with his neurology team, said Dr. Brian Monahan, and I've informed that he's cleared to continue his schedule. So Rand Paul, who I think all have to agree was right about Dr. Anthony Fauci, gain of function research, etc., again drawing a line between what is being said and what's being reported and what he believes to be true. I think McConnell should be thinking about retiring. But if he wants to serve out the rest of his term, so be it. That's his choice. If he's able to do the job, apparently, though, there's an occasional freeze for a few seconds. I don't want to hear demands that he resign when Democrats turn a blind eye to Senator John Fetterman. He, too, has neurological issues. He's been welcomed back when he goes away for a while to battle clinical depression. Special measures have been taken so that he can do his job in the Senate. McConnell has a more important position than Fetterman. I'm fine with McConnell leaving on his own terms. Okay, there you go. I often, when Rand Paul speaks, I tend to listen. I think he's a pretty smart guy. And although, he doesn't consider himself a true Republican, I think he thinks more of himself as perhaps as someone who looks at the world, as a, I don't know, more like a, what's the word I'm looking for, man?
Libertarian?
Now I'm having what?
Libertarian?
Libertarian. Thank you. I'm having my own neurological focal issues today. Yeah, as a libertarian, he looks at things from that vantage point. But I find myself in agreement with him an awful lot. He speaks to the libertarian in me. Wow. Federal prosecutors plan to indict Hunter Biden by the end of the month. We told you this yesterday. Bombshell court filing says President's son likely faces gun charges that could land him into prison for up to 10 years. Saw something here today that I had not heard before, and I'll share it with you. So the question was about this revolver. He got a revolver, and apparently Hallie Biden, who he was once his sister-in-law, then he was dating her for a while after Beau Biden, passed away, got the gun and threw it away. And then there were questions about, well, how did he get that gun in the first place? Because, you're not supposed to get a gun if you're under the influence of drugs, marijuana, cocaine, etc. And you have to check that off in the box. And if you check it off and you're doing that stuff, well, then you're lying. And so everybody talked about this revolver, and I've heard his attorney say, it was never even loaded. He never even put bullets in it. Well, you know what? What I found out today that was surprising to me is in the pictures on his laptop is Hunter Biden holding a gun that is not a revolver. It's not a revolver at all. So there was more than one gun that he wasn't supposed to have. So I think that he's got some real problems here. And will he get 10 years? No, I doubt it. Will he get any time? I think he should get a couple of years, quite frankly. But we'll see. He could face 10 years. And we're hearing that it will happen before the 29th of September. The Speedy Trial Act requires the government to obtain the return of an indictment by a grand jury by Friday of September 29th, 2023 at the earliest. The government intends to seek the return of indictment in this case before that date. So will it be another one of these sweetheart deals? Or will David Weiss show that he has a little bit of independence now that he's been made a special prosecutor? I don't have great hope here. But if he wanted to make the case that he can actually prosecute Hunter Biden now that he has the special prosecutor moniker, well, then it would seem to me that it would be a good start to say, you're going to do some time in the Gray Bar Hotel for this gun charge. The judge really helped us out on this one. The judge simply stood there and said, you know what? This is not in keeping with what I normally see. And is it possible that he could be under investigation for other things? And then, then they said, yeah, well, it is possible. A violation of the foreign, I forget what is it, FARA. You have to register as a foreign agent. So it seems to me that could happen. And I think, I'll be watching to see whether or not this is serious or whether this is another, sweetheart, rap on the knuckles kind of deal. But the maximum is 10 years. Joe Manchin is very upset with Joe Biden because the president decided, almost like just out of nowhere, to pull oil and gas leases from Alaska on Wednesday. Manchin claims the move was the latest example of an administration caving into the radical left. The Department of Interior said on Wednesday it would prohibit oil and gas drilling on more than 10.6 million acres in Alaska's National Petroleum Reserve, ensuring maximum protection, they say, for 40% of the reserve located in Alaska's North Slope. Manchin said, I can't explain to the American people why we would willingly become more dependent on foreign oil imports, eliminate good-paying American jobs, and drive up the cost of our electric bills and gas prices across the country. Well, I'm with him on that. This is yet another example of this administration caving to the radical left with no regard for clear direction from Congress or American energy security. Gas prices are going up. They can't turn to the strategic oil reserve again. Oil prices right now hovering just below $90 a barrel. Gasoline and diesel is going to cost more. It's going to ripple through the economy and cause runaway inflation again. Will we get to 9%? I don't know if it'll go that far, but it'll be bad. And the Biden administration's got nowhere to go. And in the midst of all of this, they cancel a bunch of Alaskan oil and gas reserve leases. Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. One of the things I feel I love most about Genesis Diamonds is the laid-back feel, the vibe, the relaxed feelings you get when you walk in. There are no commissioned salespeople at Genesis, never an ounce of pressure, never, a hard sell. If you're a diamond expert or if you don't know anything about diamonds, they will make you feel at home and at ease. And you can see the wide array of GIA-certified diamonds all in your price range, every shape. If you're looking at lab-grown diamonds, Genesis has those as well, at prices way below what others are selling them for. Free service for life, designer jewelers that you can find, designer jewelers that you can't find at other stores, a 110% diamond upgrade guarantee, and, by the way, an incredible selection of pristine luxury pre-owned Rolexes. This is Nashville's premier jeweler, voted time and time again as the best place to buy an engagement ring, best jewelry store in Middle Tennessee, rings, earrings, bands, bracelets, colored gemstone jewelry, all at prices other stores only dream they could offer. For your special occasion coming up, get the most value, the highest quality, and the best overall experience at Genesis Diamonds. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. When we get to retirement, what do we want to do? We want to go and kick back, right? But we also want to take an income from our investment portfolios. And there are a lot of common myths that I hear about how do you take an income from an investment portfolio. One is that people will get into, this was really big a few years ago, really big, real estate investment trust. Now, real estate gets rented and it kicks off an income, and then you have some kind of dividend that's paid, and because the REIT has to pay out most of the dividend, it's a great way to take income in retirement. But what happens, like what happened recently, when all of a sudden the properties go unrented? What happens to your income? Bye-bye, it's gone. Another thing that I see is this: people buy stocks or stock mutual funds that are dividend paying, and what we'll do is we'll live off the dividends. Well, what is the dividend? It's part of the earnings of the company. So you got the earnings of the company, right? And then what happens is the company may pay out some of the dividend, and they call that a dividend when they pay it out, or they may retain some of it, and it's called retained earnings. Well, the problem is this: what if the company's earnings go down, just like the real estate investment trust up here? What if the earnings go down? What happens to your dividend? It goes away. All of a sudden, it's bye-bye to your retirement income. So what do we want to do? We want to diversify way better. If you look at the academic research on investing and how to take income from a portfolio, quite often what it is saying, okay, I'm going to have some money in various asset classes. Large companies, small companies, value companies, growth companies, international companies, short-term bonds and intermediate bonds, and so on and so forth. And what I do is I look at these different areas of the market, and they have a historic return. And what happens if the portfolio does, this area of the market does better than this one? Well, in that particular year, I'm going to take income from this part of the portfolio. Then the next year, maybe this area does. Old concept. I mean, good grief, Nobel Prize winning concept of investing. And I actually apply it to taking income from a portfolio. So why is it that we often see this kind of stuff? It's because of the fees and the commissions and all of the incentives to sell you things that maybe aren't in your best interest. And a lot of advisors, you look at it, they aren't held to a fiduciary standard. In other words, they don't have to keep your best interest first. Paul Winkler, Inc., we hold ourselves voluntarily to that standard, and we actually disclose it in our disclosure brochures. So if you want to know more about what we do and learn more and educate along the way, go to paulwinkler.com. Set up a free 15-minute phone call so that you can learn more, become an educated investor. First step is easy. paulwinkler.com, free 15-minute phone call, and get started ASAP, because you can't afford to wait. You've got to make sure you get this right. You don't get a second shot.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us here today. You know, tomorrow is Friday. That's right. It feels like a Thursday, but it'll be Friday. And we'll have not one, but 2 rounds of Phone Your Farm Friday, which is always a fan favorite and a favorite of mine. So get your questions in order and find out, what's going to happen when people show up and start taking umbrage with things. It's all coming up tomorrow on Super Talk 99.7. In the meantime, let me tell you about D.T. McCall and Sons, company that's been around for more than 100 years in Middle Tennessee. And you know what? When you've been around more than 100 years old, you have to wonder, well, how does that happen? Well, it happens because you have a reputation for treating people right. If you don't treat people right, you won't be in business that long, I can assure you. What do they do? Well, they sell things for your home, appliances, furnitures. You need a mower? Man, I'm telling you, there's nothing I like better than my Cub Cadet mower that I got from D.T. McCall and Sons. And if you're looking for an appliance or furniture, a lot of selection to look at, and you're going to love that. And a free delivery. How many times have you purchased an appliance, paid for extra for cords and hoses, paid extra for delivery, paid for the haul away? Not such a good deal. At D.T. McCall's, you get free delivery, free setup, and free haul away. You're going to love your relationship and your experience with D.T. McCall. Find out about their 5 convenient locations by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.